Ladies and gentlemen,
The Kids in the Room podcast.
Kids in the Room podcast.
That's right. That's right.
Brought to you by Move Faces TV. Let's go.
Woo! All right. Hey guys, welcome to the Kids in the Room podcast. Today we've got Gabriel Cannon on the show. That's right, Gabriel Cannon. If you don't know Gabriel is also the younger brother of Nick Cannon as well, and also Gabriel is a great self-proclaimed actor, and he's been doing a bunch of stuff. He works at Incredible. He's been doing a bunch of amazing shit. It's good to have you on the show. What's up, Gabe? It's been a long time. We haven't worked together in a while.
What's happening, man? It's been years. I don't know who watching this. And I heard it was a lot of people, but I don't know if they really know about you and your wild side. I was there, and I know. So I don't want to put you on blast or nothing, but I know you. What's happening, man? It's been a while, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, dude. It's been a while. It's definitely been a while. I mean, you know, it's been a while. What have you been up to, man?
Man, I don't know. I mean, shoot. I got 5 kids. I don't know.
You have 5 kids? How did you do that? I mean, I know how you did it, but how did you do it?
You don't remember? See, that's what I started off. I wanted to prep the people. The wild days. Remember those days back in the day? But I ended up getting married. I ended up actually leaving Hollywood, man, shortly after me and you was running. And, we were young in the game, man.
Mm-hmm.
We were, I know, speaking for myself, I had a lot in my hands that I didn't even realize how valuable, and you know what I mean? And just looking back, realizing like, whoa, we were doing a lot at a young age. I mean, you was on red carpets with everybody. Like, you know what I mean? I would hit you getting clubs, you know what I mean? And spots, and you know what I mean? But just, we were young men and having that power. Like, everybody looked to Hollywood, looked to the world. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but we, and so, like I said, just looking back, I ended up leaving Hollywood, man. It was, the devil is at the top. Just going to Bible college, man, just laying everything down, man. I'm a country boy, man. I know about Jesus since the beginning. So, just laying everything down and just reading for myself, man, and just, needing that realness and that reality coming out of, the glitter and the falsehoods of, Hollywood.
Right, man. I mean, it was a lot of false stuff in Hollywood. I can't agree with you on that, man. I mean, we saw a lot of false stuff. We, of course, a part of some wild stuff and things like that. Had some great times, man. So it just like, what was the point that made you just like totally like, what was the final breaking point that made you want to totally just like leave LA?
Man, it was really, I can't even just give myself the credit. Like, I mean, I would have, I tell people, man, to be honest, the way we was moving, like, we was signed to Def Jam at one point, and, I was running Nick's marketing Incredible at another stage, and, just wore so many different hats that, it was just like God kind of just showed me everything that I thought I wanted, and I realized how nothing it was, how of no value it truly was. You know what I mean? And then I started, looking around at my friends and realizing like, yo, man, this is not real. Like, it's not real true relationships. It's this fake it till you make it. It's this smile in your face, stab you in your back mentality. You know what I mean? And just seeing like, I wanted something real. I was a young kid from North Carolina. I always wanted the big family, big house, white picket fence, and the pit bull or whatever kind of dog in the front yard.
Right.
And just seeing that like, yo, this is not possible. My circle wouldn't be people I would, want at my funeral. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or not even like that, but just, it's like it wasn't real and true value, and so God just really just started showing me what I really wanted. And, my definition of success had to change once I came face to face with what I thought true success was. And it's like, yo, this ain't successful. This don't feel successful. You know what I mean? So, it was just that. It was just, this is empty. It was waking up with different women every evening it was, and then it's like he said, yeah.
I remember those days.
Those days well, boy.
No more,
and,
but yeah.
Just having a young daughter, and with a reality star, and it was like, I had something real inside of this fake world, Hollywood, this matrix.
Who was that? Real. Who was that? I forgot. Danger, wasn't it? Danger from
Yeah. The radio show with the tattoo.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I was out, what I mean? I was bagging them, but
so I guess you hit it first.
Huh?
I guess you hit it first.
Man, hey, don't see, I don't brag, nah, but I was people don't even know to this day I exist, you know what I mean? And 2021 we changing that, but you know what I mean? I was just such, a team player, whether it was like I said, running the marketing. I played, the rapper in the R&B group that my younger brother was the lead singer of, and we went on tour with Mariah and just, you know, um, having these opportunities, but having the idea and the truth, from the beginning, that God is real, and you seeing people sending you clothing with purposeful devil symbols, and it's like, oh man, well, who keeps doing this? Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, yo man, that's and you start peeping, what's really going on. Is like, yo man, that's wicked, man. Like, and having to honestly come to those crossroads and in yourself making that choice. So I ran to that word, man. I ran to that truth. Like, yo, I need this. I mean, that's an armor, you know what I mean, to keep, what I mean. So yeah, it's wild out here, man.
Right. I mean, I know exactly what you're saying, how LA was. I mean, LA is I think when you go there, you have this expectation of success and then what the outcome is. But then really when you get in there deep, when you get in there deep, you start seeing stuff that
Man.
when you get in there deep, you start seeing stuff that disturbs you. And whether or not the whole world knows you, but when you're in that network, right, of the people
Yeah,
who are deep in the industry, you just see a lot of stuff that maybe you shouldn't have seen. Um,
yeah,
but it's something that is to come more often the further you climb up that ladder. And you just realize
yeah.
also as well, like you said, man, I realized a lot of stuff, even myself, a lot of synthetic people, a lot of people who weren't real, like a lot of people who were just,
I
looking
can't
for your
imagine. I mean,
views.
even your position, like you was able to get people what they dreamed of. Those red carpet walks, you was able to put anybody, somebody from over here, you was able to put them in front of, beside their favorite whoever, in front of the camera with their gift, or to you was able to put people in those positions. It's like I can't imagine, the game literally that was spit at you just to get on your red carpets, just to, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time, I think when I came to Los Angeles, one thing that I think what we were trying to do definitely was to bridge that gap and to kind of make everybody who were that were trying to be celebrities and that were aiming. They had talent, they had things going on. We wanted to help discover those people and then also put them in that network with the people who were already there. Kind of basically to close that gap and to help people's dreams come true, and then also provide consistent talent for the people who are already there, right? Because there's always a demand for some type of support or casting or whatever it may be within your movie, your film, your music. There's so much talent out there, man. I mean, it's just wild. So I just feel like sometimes it's a shame that some people aren't noticed, and I think there's an excitement on discovering newfound talent and changing
Yeah,
people's lives, right? I think
yeah,
it's great and amazing to change people's lives. Like even the people that probably came into your brother's life and changed his life. I'm pretty sure he had people that helped touch him and help catapult his career. And
absolutely.
when you don't have that, it can make or break your career. I don't care how hungry you are. It can make and
Yeah.
break your career. Somebody's got to take a risk on you.
Even how talented you are, somebody gotta expose that. Or, even in that industry, a lot of times what we see is people recognize your gifts and recognize your talents, and they're in a higher position, so they're able to dictate how far or how low or how long you sit on, what I mean,
Yeah,
shelves, what I mean, because of the recognition of that talent.
right. And what
Yeah.
happened? What was going on? Like, and I know you did have like a music career for a while too. What happened with that? Like, what was the deal with that?
Man, so we was signed to Def Jam, and it was really, just, my younger brother Ruben. Ruben, he would always sing. I mean, we
Great
got
singer,
footage.
very talented. Yes.
Yes, sir. Just from a kid from the talent show, I was always a team player. I'm the middle child. There's five of us, all boys. I'm comfortable carrying a camera from one of my brothers and making it. Hey, that's my brother, all in the crowd. I'm loud, baby. So for years, even in North Carolina, he would look up in the phone books, just the record labels and trying to get on and all the talent shows. And Nick recognized that talent and build a group. His thing was that we could have we could have you have two shots at the industry. You know what I mean? You
Mm-hmm.
have two shots at the industry if you come in with a group. You know what I mean? Because you could always go solo. So he built this group around Ruben, and I was the rapper in the group. He knew I could spit, and I became the rapper. And he was married to Mariah, so immediately we didn't start off on the street corner. It was all seasoned. We grew up with my dad with a camera on us. You know what I mean? We got footage. That's kind of Nick's story. My dad turned the TV off, wouldn't let us watch television, gave Nick his camera and said, if y'all want to watch TV, here, make it. And we automatically became his actors, and we did the soundtracks to all our movies. The first movie was I Wish I Was a Ninja Turtle. We would do these spins and turn into these little action figure Ninja Turtles. And but yeah, so that was our origins, man. And just coming out here. So we got signed to Def Jam under Nick's label, Incredible, and then went on tour with Mariah because of the connection, of course.
And what was that like going on tour with Mariah? Like, what was that like? That's a big
learning
thing.
experience, man. I wish I could have went back and captured more on footage. And you look back like, whoa, that was, but just being in the presence, being in the moment. I remember literally having an experience just performing the crowd, so big. We had Madison Square Garden opening for Mariah and Trey Songz, to where, we're the opening act, to where, it's like, the lights go off and you hear the voices raised to where you see the walls start moving because of the vocals, like, what I mean, because it's so loud in that building. It's
Right.
just this rumble, and you're the group that got to go on. And I'm the first voice that got, what's happening in Madison School, and people go crazy just because the mood, they don't care who you are. They just heard, what's up, Madison Square Garden? And it's an unreal, almost out of body experience. But just even to sit and watch Mariah, her performers, even just to watch her band, even like, their time and their rehearsal, their hard work. It was a learning experience to watch, the people who set the stage up every night, come in with that equipment, clockwork, bang, 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 and just getting to know these real people that, had their positions, but each position was key. The lighting to make everything happen. If this flame go off and my Mariah too close to it, we're gonna have some problem. You know what I mean? So everything in its order, you know what I mean? Kind of like, a watch or a god, or the order, the preciseness, and just to the professionalism, it was a one of a kind experience.
Yeah, man, I totally get it, man. I mean, you brought up a lot of cool stuff that, I think a lot of people who, enter the game, or even those who, reach their highest point and then kind of like kind of disappear, or slowly, like, I guess like I don't know, kind of like, kind of, I guess they say fall out or whatever you want to call it, but kind of just distance himself from the career, right? I mean, I think a lot of people see that and different things happen. I mean, it was wild times. I mean, it had to be amazing to be with Mariah. How did Mariah help, shape, you guys, as far as like you guys going on tour with her? Did she give you guys any pointers, or what were some key moments?
Man, she was to watch, like I said, was a learning experience in itself, but to interact with somebody that, even before her and Nick got married, it was do 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 that was just Mariah Carey. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and so to have her, to work hard and figure out which outfits we're gonna wear on stage, and our whole theme, and when we come out, it's gonna be an army theme, and then the music is gonna be explosion. And to have someone like that compliment, like, yo, I like what you guys did. I love the outfits, to, the simple things, to, it just give you so much fuel than, any other, compliment could give you, you know what I mean? Because of who is coming from, but just also knowing like this person knows what they're talking about. This person has years in the game. This person, spoke with Michael Jackson, whatever it might be, to, just to get those compliments, to see that she was watching. There was times where, she would hear some of the songs, and she would, in her and Nick's home studio, she would go and do vocals on the background. Of course, because legal problems, we couldn't tell her record label or anything, but you go listen to the old writers and artists music, some of the background vocals is actually Mariah, you know what I mean? And to just have somebody invested like that, to where it's like, you guys could come on tour with me, somebody who usually doesn't even have opening acts, you know what I mean? To just, you guys are my little brothers too, like, come on tour with me. And like, it's just like, wow, we just little black ashy kids from North Carolina. You feel me? To just to be embraced, and then to embrace those moments, man, it was unmatched.
Yeah, man, that had to be amazing, man. It sounds amazing. I couldn't even imagine, being on stage with Mariah. I mean, I've had some, cool moments in life, but I think Mariah is one of the best, situations a lot of artists or people or humans or whatever could ever have in their presence, especially being able to perform with them on stage. I mean, that whole experience has to be wild. So that's definitely, I would say, a blessing from above, right, if you will, right? So I think that's pretty awesome, man.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
fucking amazing. Excuse me.
Could have been anybody else, man, and forgot to be like, all right, y'all. It's like, for real, God? Like, you know what I mean? And, it's like, yo, I got to work hard. It gives you motivation to work harder, to dig out, what else is inside of me. Okay, if this happened at this point in my life, I couldn't even imagine, to look to the future. What else is possible? What else is, you know what I mean? So, yeah, man, 2021, man, we excited.
Yeah, man. It's totally amazing, man. I think, when you guys started, doing the whole, music thing, you guys were doing with Mariah and stuff like that. You guys ended up switching out and started doing what was a psych ward.
Like more druggies.
That was
Yeah,
right
yeah,
after
yeah.
I left Incredible with you guys, and I, moved up to Silicon Valley, and that was like, I was like, what are you guys doing now? You guys open a skate shop and all this other
See,
stuff.
it's funny. That's when I left also.
Oh,
Yeah. So like right after that, like, remember, so from the record label, we signed to Def Jam, we doing this from the record label. Man, the industry is so messed up. It's like, man, I heard, Master P saying, just looking back, like, if something similar to, not even people, just the idea of how record labels work, man. It's like, if I sign you as an artist, right? And the record label give me a bunch of money and all of this stuff, and your album never comes out, you and your group breaks up or something happened, I don't have to recoup all the money I spent. It's just almost really like a wash. So, now these executives is kind of getting in the game. They hyping these young artists up. They give them these signing bonus. They only giving them a piece of the signing bonus. They getting all these album deals, and they shelving them. And the album's never coming out, because if the album come out, now we have to take a tally for everything that was spent. That, you know what I mean? It's not just, oh, I don't know what happened to them. The dude got on drugs, they left. You know what I mean? It's not a wash, and so, with those situations and similar situations or whatever it might be, I just stayed loyal, man. Like, we had a group member that was really not, he was getting paid for making the music also. So, he's making the music, he getting a whole nother check. He wasn't really invested in being an artist like, me and my brother Ruben in the group was. Me and Ruben had kids at the time. So this was what we like, yo, this is how we feed our babies. Let's go. And
right.
he would be the type that, after we got off a tour with Mariah, to be honest, I'm continue booking shows, continue, and so he would not show up to some, like, not even not show up, like 5 minutes before we go on, like, hey man, I'm not coming. Would almost be like, man, if it ain't booked through the label, or if it ain't on no Mariah level, I'm not doing it. Kind of got big headed, like, you know what I mean? So, I'm thinking, man, every club, everything, we got to be in there. We got an opportunity. We got to expand the opportunity. We just got off a tour. One of the group members was like, man, if it ain't on the level we just got off of, I ain't doing it. And, to the point I literally had to have people fly in. I had replacement group members ready to perform, because he just stopped showing up so much that, like, okay, if he don't show up tonight, you got the moves ready? You ready? And me and my brother go on with somebody else, like, you know what I mean? And we giving these posters of these three dudes, but you look on stage, it's like, okay, I see two of them, but who's that? You know what I mean? So, and it kind of just started, dwindling from there. But, Nick at Incredible kind of seemed like, yo, man, I'm riding for whatever. I became like the, head of the street team and the marketing of Incredible. So I went from being the first group in the artist of, Incredible. Now I'm promoting the artist. That's when, we was running. We got all the vans, we wrapped all the vehicles, the Range Rovers, and now we on some street team stuff. Now we on some marketing. We making sure the artists get to their, performances. We making sure the video concepts is right. We making sure the girls show up to the video, and which is a whole nother hat from being an artist. Now we're making these things happen. So yeah, from there, when, like you said, after that, it's just, I was, once the marketing stuff was done, it's like, man, I'm not gonna keep chasing. I was chasing amazing. Remember I was chasing amazing, and God started literally just showing me like, yo, man, you're trying to do this without me. You know what I mean? And I knew who I was, and it's like, man, I surrender. I just came to a point of surrender. Like, how many women can you be with? Like, how many friends can continue to call you and say, hey, where the party at tonight? It's like,
Right.
that's not real, man. That's not, like I said, I had my daughter. So it's like when around the time you left, man, I gracefully bowed out. Nick seen the energy. The marketing group had to go for some legal reasons. I ain't gonna get into that. But he took the same energy, put all of them in a whole new group called Psych with Druggies, and put them on tour with Tech Nine, man. And I went off to Bible college, like, man, God is good. you know, on
Yeah.
tour with Tech Nine, that's deeper, man. I'm not going
Yeah.
that deep. Like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I totally know exactly what you're saying. I mean, we were in some situations with, sometimes where there were people that were, they had good interests, they meant well, but then at the same time, we also had opportunists within our circles that I know that exist. I can speak for that myself personally, that I saw personally. Now, as far as like, anybody else, I won't speak on that, but I know that I saw a couple of vultures, an opportunist around us that I don't know, man. I mean, you begin to see a lot of people like that who come into the, Hollywood and they feel like they can't make it and they don't know how they're gonna make it. And some people just say, screw it, what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna try to fucking sue somebody, excuse my French. And I know that I work with people who are doing that. And don't get me wrong, I know a bunch of people that have stole some of my stuff. I know some people stole some of my music and some things that I wrote and some credit and some things that I did, but I never once went after the sue them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not just because of just trying to keep it quote unquote real, but at the same time, some of those people, you don't probably want to deal with, because some of those people, no matter how legit they are, it might cause you some broken relationships, because a lot of people in Hollywood that are up, everybody's connected to a certain way. All right. So now you've pissed off some of your network who's related to like 5 of those people, and then also has 10 or 20 of the same friends. And it's just like, it's just awkward. It makes things awkward. And so for me, I think that's where I just like, nah, is it worth it? I can make way more money than them eventually. I just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
If they're going to be that way, let karma hit it.
You realize kind of too, like, even to make it, even the successful, you realize the sacrifice. The sacrifice is like, dang, I would have to literally sacrifice spending time with people I care for, being, you know what I mean? Or it's like, to be this way, to have this, I have to be this way. And you look at yourself, it's like, man, I can't really do people like that. I can't look you in your face and know that I'm lying and still be selling you. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, it almost, that's how you have to be. Like, you have to kind of like put on this face, it's not real, but pretend it, you know what I mean? And it's like, man, I can't really look at myself and continue to do real people like that, or continue to know that people are looking me in my face doing that, and it's like, I need something real, man.
Yeah, man. That's real stuff. Real stuff for sure, man. I know exactly what you mean, that realness. That was partial the reason why, a big motivation of why I left Los Angeles at the time. I was just like, nobody's sincere. Nobody wants to put their money where their mouth is. Nobody's really trying to do things. I felt blockers from bigger corporations that I was partnering with and things like that. And I was just like, man, put your money where it is. Put your money where your mouth is. Invest. Let's make some movements. There's traction here. There's things here. You see what's going on. Put it there. But there were a lot of people who were like, oh, if I do that, it was a relationship thing. If I do that, I'm going to piss off this company. And if I do that, I'm going to piss off this other company who your company could possibly destroy. So I don't know if I want to help you. What's in it for me? And what happens if you don't make it that big with your company? Then I pissed off 5 of my friends who are billionaires, et cetera, right? It was those kind of messy conversations. It's like, man, come on, man. If you see something good, you got to take the risk. And so I saw Silicon Valley, where there was a place where people were taking the risk more often, They were taking the risk on the underdog. They weren't afraid to disrupt Hollywood and Los Angeles and things like that. And I saw it from the beginning that Silicon Valley was going to, override the entertainment industry and take over it and control it. And I was trying to whisper that to a lot of people in Los Angeles, to a lot of heads.
On it, we couldn't understand some of the stuff where you were thinking and I kind of like, because you could be intimidated. Like, we blow both men, but it's like, you just look at you like, this brother is smart. Like, you feel me? It ain't no, you know what I mean? It's like, this dude's smart. And it's just like, to know that the industries are ran by people who, if I look at you, it is like, it could be a little
Right.
intimidation unless we take a shot, like, you know what I mean? And then I see, like, no, he a real dude, like, you know what I mean? Until you see, and that's how it was for me until I spent time and like we got in the environment to where it's like, yo, it's us, we out here, and it's like, yo, he's smart, but he's still a person, like, you know what I mean? But I just see like I kind of felt for you in the industry because like if I'm intimidated, imagine these people who run the industry when he come and pit. And I'm looking at, you know what I mean? I come in a room and they like, yo, he's some bright ideas. He's dope, but my edge kind of make you feel safe. Like, you know what I mean? Okay, he's not gonna be. But when you come in there, it's like, yo, like, you know what I mean? And I could, and I would, kind of feel for I couldn't understand, and I kind of would wonder your experience being like, you know what I mean? It's like, yo, I'm going the same path. I ain't like, you know what I mean? It's you articulating with the best of them. Like, you feel me? And it's like, I'm sure if I got hated on and if, people intimidated by me, I'll come in there with the dreads. Remember, I used to have a fro, like, man, a brother who cleaned up, like, you know what I mean? I know you're probably like, oh, heck no. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what do we do with this guy?
Yeah, I think you mentioned a lot of serious things. Yeah, I think those conversations did come out, and I did see intimidation, and I think even from the ideas and the execution and things that we were doing. I mean, as you remember probably at the time, I mean, we had the red carpet events. We had Move Faces Records. We also had Move Faces TV. Which we partnered closely with Incredible. I mean, we pretty much collaborated and worked together. And then we also had, and we were also partners with MTV with Move Faces TV as well, which I'm not going to go into that conversation because that's a whole nother deal. And I mean, there was that, and then I planned on making movies as well. I mean, we had a bunch of stuff. I remember I met up with Shabba-Doo from Break It, and
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
RP, right?
yeah, we had a meeting, about, I had an idea to make a new Break It, and we sat down in Beverly Hills and we were talking about it, and he was just like, all right, so and it was exciting to me because I always wanted to meet him because I love that movie, and he was just like, all right, so who's got the budget? That was the beginning of the conversation. Who's got the
Yeah.
budget? And I was like, what? He said,
Where the
I
money at?
I know you don't. I know you don't. You guys look too young. So who's got the money?
Yeah.
And we were just like, what? We'll get the money. Like, what? Whoa, this is an awkward conversation. Anyhow, he just started giving us a freaking, school lesson, and it was just like, oh my God, this is the guy that I always wanted to meet? Like, what is he doing? Like, he's ruined my whole freaking image of who he is. I just thought he was, I'm Ozone, street dancer, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just ruined it for me.
It's supposed to be, right?
Right. So it didn't do it for me. So what I ended up doing is, I ended up walking out of that meeting just not feeling like I wanted to even do it anymore. I just felt broken by that meeting. And I was like, man, I don't know. I just didn't like the full energy of who he was. And the irony of that is I remember he just died recently, if you don't recall. And I was literally thinking 2 days before that, I still would like to do that movie and that I spoke about with him. But I was like, I was frustrated. I was like, but he just was acting so weird. I just didn't really vibe with it. I wish he would have just, acted the way that I felt like, been more collaborative. He was more trying to control it, and I've got the rights and I've got the movie and I've talked to this person, this and this. So, kind of wanted to have us be like his little servants to doing the movie. And I'm like, no, that's not what's going to happen. You got to come with my vision. I have a vision. I already have things going on. It's modern. It's to this time, and we can do this the right way. He just wasn't. He just wasn't.
You told that to him?
Yes, he just wanted to come in there and dictate everything. I was like, nah, that's not like. I was like, nah, I'm just gonna walk out of respect because I did love his his earlier movies as a child, but out of respect, I just let him talk, and I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling this guy. I'm so upset. I looked up to this guy for so long. I'm so upset, and I took that. But anyways, the irony of it is he passed away like 2 days after I thought of him again and about that whole scenario. And the next thing I know, he's passed. I was like, wow, that's deep. Crazy, right?
RIP, man, RIP. And that kind of just reminds me, man, like to leave here empty, man, to leave this world with everything checked off. That's one of my, I'm gonna say biggest fears. I try not to walk in fear, but constant things on my mind. I want to leave here empty. I don't want like, oh, I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that, or dang, I should have finished writing this script to leave here, and of course we don't predict when we go, nobody knows when they go, but to literally I would like to leave here satisfied with life. Like, man, I did that. I accomplished everything. If I ain't accomplished, we went after that bad boy. You know what I mean? And empty. That's not like, oh, I should have did this, or man, what if we would have? And to leave here, the box is checked off. I don't know if it's a bucket list thing, but just a inner man thing. Like, yeah, man, I did that. I raised my family. I loved my wife. I bang bang. I left enough behind to where I'm clear that they good. Lord help them figure out what they're gonna do with it. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I mean, I get it. I get it. And I think everybody wants to live or whatever they consider live. I mean, for me, I always see life as this, I don't see like all this tribalism and sides and everything else like that colonials make. I see things as like, in life in general. Let me focus on that. Life in general. I see life as just like, hey, man, life is about or like a vacation, right? It's a vacation or a lesson to me. This is how I view it. And we're only here for a little while. Enjoy your vacation. Have the best time you can. And, continue whatever mission you have and grab what you can and learn from whatever you need to do here. And just kind of carry on from there. I mean, that's just kind of how I see it, completely. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. It's a wild thing. Excuse me. Ooh, it's a wild thing. I think your video died out for a second, but we're gonna keep on going. It looks like it says it's still recording.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Can't see me?
I can't see it. But I think your video. I think it says it's still recording, so it might just be at a lower level. The video is still recorded. Yeah. It looks like it's still recording. It just has been disabled due to internet quality issues. Yeah. So I think it's still going. I guess it'll come right back on. I guess as we continue to talk.
Okay,
But
sure.
yeah. But yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. I think life is interesting, and I think things are interesting. But like I said, pretty much, I think it's like we're here for our own period of time, and kind of guess we have to just make the best of this vacation. If we think of it as something permanent, I think that's when we get kind of stuck.
Yeah, I mean, from example, from history, if anybody think this joint permanent, man, one thing that's for sure is we gonna come and go. One thing for sure is that grave, baby, that cremate, however you want to go, man, we gonna go. And I think a lot of people, even at the elite level, is trying to figure out how they're gonna prolong that because they're afraid of what they did in the midst of this life. So they want to live forever. They want to look younger. And I mean, I'm even dealing with that in my 30s. Like, man, shoot, man, I'm getting old, and just embracing, where I'm at from, from being on stage, Madison Square Garden crowds and shooting videos, but now to, embracing, being a youth mentor, like, being where I'm at, like, yo, I appreciate that, man. I could go on with these youngsters for hours and hours because really all I'm doing is telling you where it, how you could tighten up. Like, you know what I mean? To all these youngsters and all these kids that's coming behind us, man. So, just embracing the calling and just looking at, okay, where have I been? Where do I want to go? And what pieces can I play now, man? And yeah, man. And at the same time, all into, because before it was almost a selfish ambition. I want to do this. I want to reach this and become this because I want to do this. And I won't help me, and to now walk in a servant's mentality almost like, I want to do this for other people, man. I want to, I need a whole bunch of money if I want to help a whole bunch of people. I can't be broke. You feel me? But to really walk with a servant's heart, man, to whether it's my children, my wife, whether it's at the job, whether it's writing the script, man, and even the approach to writing a script or even writing a song now is, before it was man, I'm so fresh to death, or I could bang, you know what I mean, or do an this, and now it's, if we approach it with like, nah, man, we need healing for the community unity, you know what I mean? It was just going in that vein. It's just it's a deeper message. I think the message has more longevity and, past one's lifespan once one take him eye off of himself.
Right.
And the gang.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, what was it like for you guys growing up as a kid? Because you were in North Carolina, but how did Nick get out in California?
We actually all group was born in San Diego. My dad's from San Diego. He started this gang out here out in San Diego, and he was, out here banging, and to the point he fell off a roller coaster one time and drowned in the Pacific Ocean. And just, devil trying to take him out, but he found God and just like literally changed his like kind of my story from Hollywood, and his was from, you know, excuse me, from gangs, from gangs, gang culture. And so he just made that transformation. He literally went to school in North Carolina, met my mom. And so when he met my mom, he had already had Nick back in California with my grandparents. As he, as my grandparents watched my dad's son, he goes off to college. He meets, my mom, his wife, and has me, Caleb, Ruben, back to back. Javen have the rest of the boys. And so Nick comes out there to live with his father. Nick, if you go back and look at his review, he called it like his boys in the hood story. So he gets to he gets around the age 12. We kind of met Nick on camera. My dad would go fly back and forth from North Carolina to San Diego to where his other son is, and he take this big old, how big the camera was back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And so he's filming, so we send a message. What's up, Gabriel, Caleb, Ruben, Nick sending us message showing us dance moves and all this MC Hammer, Rat Tail, back in the days, and just being cool for his little brothers. He got 3 little brothers in North Carolina. My dad fly back, shows the video, we make a video, send it back. So Nick was always TV to us. Like, you know what I mean? We met the dude on TV from, my dad, flying back with these big old VHS tapes, and so Nick get about 12, he comes to live with us in North Carolina. And, that's what, he says it's his boys in the hood story. I remember my dad, once he first touched down, my dad brought us all to the bathroom, cut his rat tail off. He cut his rat tail off. Nick brought a bunch of guns in the suitcase, toy guns, of course. My dad took us to these woods out in the back of the apartments, threw all of his guns, into the woods. Like, no, we don't do guns. It's not what we're doing. And kind of just shaping him up. You know what I mean? Like I said, he says his boys in the hood story, and just gave him his video camera to where it's like, man, y'all can't really watch TV. I don't really condone that, but here is my camera, make TV, and we was in church 3 times a week. So
wow. And then
yeah.
how did that translate to, eventually him, becoming a celebrity or, in general?
I mean, you see it. If you see his story, he was the youngest staff writer at the age 17 in television history. That comes from his dad turning that TV off and saying, "Here's my camera. If you want to watch TV, make TV." So now he got 3 little brothers, a camera, and now he has to write the script. Now he has to, teach us how to act, like, and he's, just soaking in everything as a 12-year-old. You know what I mean? So, that's kind of where that came from. He started writing, he started producing his own television way back then as a 12-year-old because my dad wouldn't allow him to watch it. So, as we soaking us all in, he goes back to California and he just does what his dad's been having him do. Like, I remember my dad had a public access, at late night, them pastors come on TV telling you about Jesus late, like 2 a.m. My dad had one of those public access channels. So he would give Nick a segment on his channel. So Nick would have to take his camera and produce a segment. So he got a little public access. You can tune in at night to Nick's channel. So he kind of started looking at things totally different. He done got on public access. He didn't really want to watch TV anymore because he couldn't even do it. But now I know how to make it. So like when he came back to California as a, to finish high school, he just continued doing what he's already been doing, people with the crown on his head. You feel me?
And then how did he get how did he get discovered? I
think he was in a comedy club, and I know you met Michael Goldman a few. Michael.
Right, Mike.
Manager, and I think he was in a comedy club. Man, my dad he wanted to be a comedian. Like my dad would have him in. We had a North Carolina version of Showtime at the Apollo. There's footage out there. My dad got it. It's probably on his Facebook. But Nick just doing at 12 years, I think maybe 11, 10 years old, just doing stand-up comedy. Back in North Carolina. We would do them at the what do they call it? The fun cities and these little chicken shacks and these just little, country places. He doing stand-up comedy So he came out to California, and if you listen to his story, he'll tell you he would be 17 in the clubs. They would let him get on stage, but then they would kick him out. Like, you're too young to even be in these clubs. You be at the comedy stores and all these places. That's how he know all these comedians. And you know what I mean? He said they would do wilding out, just freestyling in the back. That's where he get these ideas from. But he was just happy to be around these comedians. So, I think he's just in the club, and Michael Goldman discovered him, put him on the circuit. I know he started doing warm up, audience warm up for the Keenan and Kel show and all that. And I think Keenan realized that he was sleeping in his car. He was dedicated, driving from San Diego to LA just to do the gig. Keenan realized he was sleeping in his car, and let him stay with him. Like, man, he ain't gotta keep driving to San Diego, bro. Just stay with me. Let him stay with him. They became best friends, and he started writing, like, you know what I mean, writing for the Keenan and Kel show and writing his own show. They eventually gave him the Nick Cannon show, and just became Nickelodeon's guy even to this day. So yeah, that's kind of just God placed him in position, had him prepared. That my dad having him prepared had a lot to do with it, being ready, man.
Wow, that is an amazing story. I mean, from kind of like rags to riches in a way, right? That's just got to be humbling. From North Carolina.
Yeah, country, man. My bad. Definitely humbling, man.
Where were you guys living in North Carolina?
Huh?
Where were you guys living at in North Carolina at the time?
We were in Charlotte, and I just went back for
Queen City.
I just went back for Charlotte.
The Queen City.
Yeah. Oh, you said Queen City. I thought you said which city? Yeah, Queen City, baby. Heck yeah. Country, baby. I mean, it's the city, but but I just went back, and it's like, just looking and appreciating and just honestly looking at God's hand in our life. We wasn't in the hood. We was like beside the hood. We lived in this retirement neighborhood, but my mom had to, like, the people who sold my parents their house, like, they couldn't afford it, so they gave them the deeds, like, to the land. They just gave it to them. They knew they couldn't afford it, but they seen they had all these kids, and God just was working on people's hearts, where my mom got to this day, got a big old lake in her backyard. We grew up going in our backyard fishing. She owned the lake, the land, like 2 acres. So we was good in sports, because all we had to do, back then they'd tell you go outside and play. Like, it was no internet and no, go outside and play, go climb a tree, do something. So we all grew up country, athletic, cornbread fed, and always in sports and stuff. So yeah, man, it was definitely something serious. But just looking at like I said, God's hand. Like, we wasn't in the hood, we wasn't the whole time just kind of being set apart.
Wow, that's crazy. And then, like, what's it like? I mean, it had to be like, what is the experience like for you and your brothers, growing up? Like, because you said at one point you guys were in North Carolina and Nick was out in California, and then at one point he had to be on TV. And then, like, what was that situation like for when you were living in North Carolina with your social life as far as your friends and stuff like that? And then they're like, and you're like, hey, look, that's my brother. Because I know that situation came up. That's my brother, Nick. And then, like, I know you had to have some people like, what? Yeah, right.
Oh, heck, your brother, your brother who? Your black ass? Like, oh, hell no. You know what I mean? People, like, you would literally have to bring pictures of y'all as babies together. You know what I mean? Then people would steal the pictures. I don't even understand why. Like, my family photo album, if you try to look back, a bunch of pictures with us with Nick, like, people would steal those pictures, but we would always bring them and prove them and look for some more to prove that that's my brother. And then being in North Carolina, it's almost like, what? But then, not really looking, like him. Even like, like you asked, moving from North Carolina, we was always popular in sports and, having personalities, cool dudes. But it was something different when we moved to California. It was like people already knew we were coming. Somebody told them Nick Cannon has brothers and they come into our school. So, we already had people like, well, I'm gonna be that boyfriend. We already had girlfriends picked out for us, and like, being country boys who had to, do extra, be funny to get the girls' attention. Shoot, you got girls waiting on you. Like, who, me? Shoot, I'm ready, baby. Let's go. Like, it was definitely that we learned, from North Carolina. We didn't know what a kickback was, bro. Like, we came to California and figured out what a kickback was and was invited to everyone that ever existed in that county. The Cannons are coming. You feel me? So we definitely indulged and embraced and grew up faster than we should have, indulged past the, boundaries. But like I said, being always kept by God, man. I was the type dude before I lay with a chick, I'm gonna pray, Lord God, especially if I ain't gonna wear no condom. Father God, protect me, Jesus. I pop a pill and like, Father God, I know I'm acting crazy, but this gonna make me act crazy. You know what I mean? But literally looking back, man, as far out as it was, bro, he kept me, man. And I could just thank him, man. He kept me,
Yeah, man,
man.
that had to be really interesting because you're also talking about a point in time where like, there's this awkwardness because it's just like your brother is famous and then not everybody knows him. I mean, not everybody knows you guys because you guys are the brothers of him, but not many people saw you. I think in LA circle, everybody knew, right? So once you guys got there,
Yeah,
everybody knew and it wasn't like a thing, right? Everybody knew somebody had a brother or somebody had a
yeah,
sister. Everybody knew kind of those people who had their brothers and sisters or relatives that were of other famous people as well. And it was not a thing. But like when you're in a place like North Carolina, there is
yeah.
this like thing where like stop lying.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And then with Drumline, I think I was in the 10th grade when Drumline came out, bro. And it was overwhelming. I think I passed without going to class. Like the teachers were like once it became real, like and then Nick did like a tour, and he actually like came to North Carolina to promote the movie and being there with him, and people, it was confirmed. He got on the radio station, shouted out our school, like you know what I mean. It was stuff like that to where it was like, yo, like they ain't lying, like you know what I mean. So we became like that family, like you know what I mean, to where it was like you got to pick out your man. I got two girlfriends, like you know what I mean. So yeah, when Drumline came out, man, it was really, it was another life from there. Like I said, man, like you could get on anybody basketball team because the coach is thinking, like he gonna buy all the shoes at least. You know what I mean? You didn't like the doors just started opening, man. Like.
Right. That's see that's what's so interesting to me is that point where you guys were you know you guys were just like receiving this additional fame without really even being super famous at your I mean in reality, which is crazy
Yeah.
because technically you guys were famous but not. You guys had the perks of being famous but you weren't famous. A really awkward thing.
And the perks is clothes. The perks is like, back then it was throwback jerseys. The perks is you got a bunch of but you still just as broke as everybody else. He got the money, not you. Like, you know what I mean? So, you just so it is this weird dynamic of other people's imagination, even to the point of what you look like. People hear Nick Cannon Brothers is coming. They don't think this guy is about to walk in the room. Like, you know what I mean? So, you become almost a victim to people's imaginations because they already think, oh, he probably gonna drive this. They gonna pull up in this, though. They probably got so much money. And then like they see you ain't got it, they probably, oh, he just trying to act like he ain't got no money. Well, ain't nobody trying to rob you. You can wear your chain. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's just this crazy dynamic of people's imagination. And you know what I mean? Like even to the point where, we have times to where, we're trying to get a team together and work on a film or something like that, right? And just like a natural artist, you're trying to put a team together, you're trying to be a creator, but you ain't got no budget. Like everybody's story, how you start off, you ain't got no budget, you just want to build with a team. But being connected to someone like that, when you like, hey man, I ain't got no budget, but if we all come together, man, and you try to pitch people your vision and you connect it to a millionaire, they think you lying. Like they think you're trying to swindle them. They think you're trying to con them into working for free. And it's like, bro, you feel me? And it's like he got the money. Like you feel me? So it's just this weird, and like I said it before, like I fell victim to other people's imagination and an identity issue. You begin to, you see those faces when you show up and people like, that ain't Nick Cannon, but you see those reactions, you see, you know what I mean? What people don't, you looking at them, they ain't looking at themselves. So you see how people react and you see that somebody done told them I'm Nick's brother. You could tell when somebody acting normal, you just this black dude and they interact with you. And then you can see when they come back and somebody done told them, yeah, that's Nick Cannon. It's a totally different interaction. You know what I mean? And like I said, yeah, you kind of lose your own identity and who you are because you're trying to live up to. I am Nick's brother, like, cause I don't look like him. I'm trying to be funny like him, or you know what I mean. I'm trying to show you that with that because I see you got all these expectations of me, so I'm trying to live up to these things you don't put in your mind. So I begin to lose the truth of, yo, who am I? What am I actually here for? What did I actually come in the room? You be people pleasing, and you know what I mean. So that was a lot of the things I was going to that kind of led to the Bible, college, journey, just leaving and bowing out of Hollywood also.
Wow. I mean, that's deep. I mean, I think you mentioned a lot of deep things, and I think that's really what I wanted to touch on is like, what was it like to be, the brothers of somebody like a Nick Cannon? And like, what was it like growing up with him and like the dynamics of like how that whole infrastructure and, I don't know, man. I think like the whole way of just like, or experience of how you guys, thought and how you guys receive things and what was it like through your eyes, instead of, because everybody can kind of guess some things or read or watch some videos and things like that or interviews with Nick Cannon and see things from his eyes. But what I'm always interested in is what was it like being you and what was it like being the brothers of him? Because that is an interesting space because you guys had to deal with a lot of different things that I think probably even Nick Cannon will never even understand technically because he is the celebrity. He is the one, as you said,
Yeah.
with all the money. So it's really, even though he grew up like you guys, partially for the most part, he still experienced life through a different lens than you
Oh yeah.
guys did, and he still
Awakening.
lives it. So it's like it's just a different identity. It's a different world, and his perspective is totally different. And you and your brother's perspective is coming from another lens. It's looking at it a whole different opposite way, and it's got to be crazy because, like you said, you're looking at somebody who's a multimillionaire, and then none of the brothers, from what I understand, are, and mark me if I'm wrong, are on Nick's level, right? As far as
He got
finances.
it. He got it.
He's the bank, right? He's the
Yeah, he
bank.
got it.
And it's just like, wow. And there is an expectation that you guys are the bank too as well. Because I mean, heck, even when I first had met you guys and stuff like that and we were working together, I was like, why the hell is Gabriel asking me for the change for the gas? I was like, what? I thought I was
It didn't make
dreaming.
sense,
I
did
was
it?
like, what the fuck?
It didn't make sense.
I was like, stop playing, dude.
It makes sense. That makes sense.
Stop
But
playing.
that's a lot of that has to, I mean, even like, I mean, not even just on, but that in a bigger scope, that industry is ran off that book, basically that 48 laws of power, bro. Only give them, one of the rules is only give them enough to where they got to keep coming back. You keep them under your thumb. If I see that you talented, bro, and I see that you got something, I'm not gonna feed that and give you enough to where you can go build your own because at that point you're gonna automatically become my competition. So I'm gonna only give you enough to where you could keep coming back to my table. You know what I mean? So, we was literally running off the budget to run. Like, you know what I mean? We was running off, we got to get to all these artists here and there. We really literally running off of the gas money to get them there. And then like, I even had to look up and realize like, yo, I've been working straight, diligently, consistently, daily. I got company vehicles. So if I leave the company, I got to give these back. You know what I mean? And so you look up and realize you've been dealing with so much budget money that you didn't put no money in your account. You dealing with a lot of situations. You're dealing with a lot of different projects, but you know what I mean? You're not building windows in your own mansion. It looks good when you're attached, it's shiny. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, like I said, that whole situation. I mean, we kind of came up just to answer your first question. Just from our lens, it was a protection thing. It was whatever Nick need, we there. Whatever situation um, that Nick is going through, we gonna be right there. We gonna have his back. We gonna hold him down. And it really wasn't a trying to get the spotlight, trying to do all the stuff that he was doing. It was what does he need us to do? So when he had his store on Melrose, we mopping the floors, we working the registers. We like I said, I'm running the street team. I got a bunch of guys putting his posters up all on Hollywood Boulevard. So it was I think it's a natural thing with brothers or siblings to if the oldest one, like I said, they said on that Frank Lucas movie, American Gangster, if Frank Lucas was gonna be his mama told him if you was gonna be a mechanic, all your brothers would have been mechanic. If you would have worked at a burger chain, all your brothers brothers would have, so it was like that for us. Whatever he would have done, we was, naturally following suit. But in our world, our father gave us this camera. We was, I got pictures on my Instagram of me being 8 years old, sitting at the feet of Don King and people like that. Like, you know what I mean? As my dad hold the camera and do they media and stuff like that. So we was groomed for the industry, you know what I mean? Not even for entertainment and expression, and now just seeing like, the call for me was to express the things of the kingdom.
Wow, that's deep. And I think that's interesting, man. It's I don't know, I think it's always interesting to see the, life through different people's lenses. Um I mean, we had good times, man. We had good times. I remember the times we would go pick up, what was it, the New Boys.
Mm,
We would do
mm.
stuff like that, and then what was it? What was the other group that Incredible used to?
New
Uh,
Boys, Rangers,
the
man. You remember?
Rangers.
I don't even know if you remember. Remember the young we had Gabby Wilson and her. She's a mega star now. Her, but remember she was going by Gabby Wilson. She was just a little girl back then. Nick had a lot to do. You remember Kaylani before she even blew up? She was in psych ward druggies, bro.
Holy
You know,
shoot!
Kaylani was remember the one female in psych ward
That's
druggies? That was
right.
Kaylani.
That was Kehlani.
That was Kehlani, bro. Like, that Nick had a hand in a lot of people's, careers and that people don't know
It's
about.
crazy that you even mention those things because I always think about situations even in my own life, and even when we were working together, just what you mentioned, like some of those people you're working with, or you're doing things with, and you just don't even realize that they transfer to this other being or to this person now because it's crazy.
Yeah,
And I think like
yeah.
what you mentioned is amazing because like even some separate situations outside of Incredible, I know that like I was in a, I mean, you probably don't know this, but now you're gonna know it because I don't really like to talk about myself like that. But
Okay.
I was in a Love for Sale with Wes Parr, who was
Okay.
directing the film, and Aisha Curry was in the film.
Oh, word.
Maya, Jackie Long,
Oh,
and a
word.
bunch of other people. What was the Weber? I forgot the Web guy name. But anyways, it was a lot of different celebrities in that one movie. And
Mhm.
actually, we shot that in North Carolina.
Oh, word.
We shot that in Raleigh, North Carolina. We
Home
drove,
team. Shout out to Moray. You feel
yeah,
me? Good saying.
we drove out there for that because Wes Parr was like, "Hey, shoot this movie. You guys want to come in and just because at the time, me and Brandon, we were doing like this group called Third Step at the time in East Coast, and we were doing tours and stuff like that, man. 10,000 a pop, but we were doing small clubs and venues, but then 10,000 a pop on arenas and stuff like that on the East
Yeah.
Coast, and even that was just crazy and humbling. But I didn't like that, man. I wanted to get out of it. I didn't like the whole music thing and the crowd and the fans. As even as we started
Right?
climbing up, I wasn't feeling it, man. I saw one situation where a mom and daughter were like, "Hey, third step," like, oh, I'm like, whoa, two,
That's your daughter. Like, side
yeah,
piece for her.
yeah.
Like,
Well, mom,
yeah.
well, mom was trying to join in too, and I was just like, this
Yeah.
is
Like,
awkward.
bro, when you see what people are willing to do
It scared me,
for moments, bro, like not even nothing real, just moments, it's like this is not good. You
and
feel me? Like,
and I thought that was something. But when I was privileged enough to go to Michael Jackson's funeral, and I remember I was in the limo. I was in the limo, and they had secret routes where the limos would take you in because they didn't want it to at the Staples Center. They didn't want people to know, and it was just thousands of people down there. And I remember they had this weird route they went, and then they came in the back, and there was like all these guards. And I remember there was one girl. She was hiding behind a bush, and she jumped out of the bush. I don't know how she found this entrance, but she jumped out of the bush, and she was from Spain. And she jumps out, and she's like beating on the freaking limo window, like, oh my God, you gotta help me get in. Help me. I need to see Michael before he goes. It's my last dying wish. I've got to see Michael. Please let me in. Let me in. She's beating on the freaking window. She couldn't see me technically, probably because it was so dark in the window, but she knew people were in there.
yeah.
But she's screaming, and I'm just like looking like, holy shit. This is
Wow.
creepy. This is
Yeah.
crazy. She came from
Yeah.
literally said she came with a one-way ticket from Spain, and she just came to see Michael, and this is like her dying wish, and all she wanted to do was just to see Michael go. And I was like,
You look at the word fan, the fanatic, like these people literally embody fanatics over, like, you know what I mean? They give their life over to, you know,
It's crazy.
it's spiritual, man. It's crazy. It's
And
an
I loved
over.
Michael Jackson, by the way, and I think a lot of people did. But I just thought I was like, wow, I saw this on TV as a kid, and I knew like
Yeah,
since I was a kid, I was like, oh, I always wanted to like go see Michael Jackson. And the sad truth is, actually going, I did go see him, but it was on his deathbed, at his
crazy,
funeral, which was like, wow,
crazy.
how ironic
Yeah,
does the universe work?
yeah,
I was like, I see
yeah.
him, but this is not the way that I wanted to see him.
The
But
shell of the.
but hey,
That's
at least I
crazy.
was blessed enough to see him. I think that was the
Yeah,
coolest thing, just to at least see him. So it was like more of like a buy instead of a high,
yeah,
and that was wild. And just even going out with hanging out with Tito's sons and stuff like that. Shout out to T Rio, and
yeah.
also Taj
I
and
don't
everybody
know
else
you,
like
but
that.
shout out to him. I don't know him, but shout
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I went out with Taj one time with T Rio because he's married to one of the Brazilian triplets, and we went out, and I remember he pulled up. They actually pulled up in like an old Accord,
Yeah,
like an '88 Accord, and
yeah.
they have a lot better cars than that. But coming out, they just drove in a little. Not trying to put anybody on the
Incognito.
spot, a hoopty. And I remember I was talking to the door guy in this club on West Hollywood. And I was like, "Hey, look, they're coming in. I'm waiting for the Jacksons." He's like, "Yeah, right." I was like, "No, no, no. We'll be here in a second. So I'm just making sure that we have everything set up." He's like, "All right, whatever." And I was like, "All right." And then they pull up, and I'm like, "Oh," they're texting me like, "Hey, we're here, man. Where you at?" And I was like, "I'm right here at front." And I'm like, all right. I said, "All right, man. They're here. Let's get ready to go." And he's like, "Where?" And I'm like, "Where?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't know. Actually, they're telling me they're here." And I'm seeing this hoopty pull up. And I'm like, "Where are you guys at?" Like, seriously, because this door guy's getting on my nerves because he doesn't believe me.
Yeah.
And they're like, "No, we're right here. We parked." And I'm like,
In
"Where?"
the
And then they get out of this old dusty Honda. I'm like, "What are y'all?" I didn't even say anything, but I was like, "Whatever, dude. It's all good, dude. As long as you guys are here, we can go in and have this party." And it was
It is
cool.
what it is.
Yeah, we had a great time. And then Evan Williams, I mean not Evan Williams, Evan Ross
Ross,
had
yeah.
came by me probably 15 minutes before they pulled up, and he was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" I was like, "Hey man, nothing much." I said, "I'm just waiting for the Jacksons." He said, "Oh yeah, I know." And I was like, "Oh, how do you know?" I never met you before, but like I see you on the movie, like the Ti movie that one time, but I've never met you before. But
Yeah,
he already knew that I was waiting for them before I even told him. I was like, "How the hell did you know that?" Like,
that's,
because
that's funny.
obviously they're close family friends, so they knew that he was there and that I was there, and I was like, "Dude, how do you guys know who even I am?" And I thought that was crazy. And then
Message spread fast.
yeah, but obviously, again, then I started thinking about it, the Rosses and the Jacksons are really close. The circles
Yeah.
get smaller,
Oh yeah.
and then
Oh yeah.
the Gordys, and even hanging
Oh
around
yeah.
Carrie Gordy, Barry Gordy's son, and going over
Those
the
family
house.
families for life.
Yeah, all those people are connected, man. I saw Prince up there on the wall and everybody else. I went into Carrie Gordy's house one time, and if you don't know the story on Carrie Gordy is actually basically the story of the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. He is actually Carlton.
Oh really?
The story is based off of Carrie Gordy, who is Carlton.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
because
dope.
the Fresh Prince of Bel Air is based off of Barry Gordy's life with Billy Medina or something Medina, who came to live with the Gordys, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
basically Carrie Gordy
Oh
was Carlton.
yeah.
So it was
Okay,
all based
okay.
off of like a true story of the Gordys,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
dope.
crazy, right?
Yeah, that's dope.
And I was just in there. Smokey Robinson, relatives were all in there, sitting in the room, and Fuller, Gordy, and all the little Gordys were sitting in there. And the guy from LMFAO,
Yeah, he related to somebody, ain't
that's
he?
his brother.
Yeah, I listen.
They're half
Yeah,
they're half brothers. Their mom's Russian, but they're all Gordys.
that's crazy. See, I'm
Yeah,
trying to build a legacy like that.
dude, it's really that
They should
deep.
have been on Tannins.
Right, and then how the T.J. Jackson, I think, is the one who he dated. I think what Kim Kardashian
They
before.
had that group 3T. Yeah,
Yeah, he dated her before, and
yeah,
Taj is one of the three T's.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's what's like, man, this whole world is just so small. I just like you can't really,
Hollywood.
piss people off because everybody's like
That's why they
connected.
say it's about who you know. It's about who you know out here, man.
It is, and it's just that
Yeah,
crazy. But I don't know, man. I think it's a wild thing, man. But I don't know, to change the subject though. I definitely see it, but how is it like for you guys right now? It's like I know like I think it's like ironic that when you see things like on the media and things like that now with like Nick, and it's like
I'm gonna grab a charger though, but I hear you.
okay, but yeah, no worries. But how Nick
Yeah.
is like the whole thing that happened with his whole podcast, and it was like a short little situation with him, and I thought that was interesting because like the thing is Nick's manager's a Jewish man, so it's like he loves Jewish people. He loves Jewish people.
Exactly.
So for people to just like think, oh, Nick doesn't like Nick loves Jewish people. Nick, the person who discovered him was Jewish.
Yeah. No, I feel you, man.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's ironic how people just like will prejudge and just jump in and try to attack people, and our cancel culture just immediately assumes something as soon as somebody says something. Like people don't really know people's real true connections and true intentions. They just see one little thing, somebody says something on TV, they assume, oh no, since they don't look like they're a part of that culture or that grouping, whatever, oh, he just doesn't like these such and such people, when actually Nick loves, Jewish people. And I think that was ironic that it was looked at as like he's trying to, you know, and of course he made a great apology and told everybody what was up. But I think even deeper is like the dude works with Jewish people like since he started.
Yeah, and I think it was two things. I think he was I think the statement he made about the melanin thing, like by you, if you look at a black kid and a white kid, you cannot say because of the melanin in this black kid that he's better than the white kid. That's just a
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah,
statement. Like,
that's where it just takes it south. That it could easily
yeah,
be
that's a but there is people who believe, biblical scholars, people who study, religious studies, who believe that, if you trace these ancestries and these tribes and these families and these so and so begot so and so, back, that the African American people in America are possibly linked to some of those biblical tribe, which will label them as the original Jewish people. Now, if we all comes from one original seed, I mean, obviously that has to be true. You know what I mean?
right.
So, and I think when you come into, the whole world is really being, these wars is fought over these ideas in this holy land in Israel, and who's the true people, and you know what I mean? This idea, which you know, if it wasn't for Jesus, would you know what I mean? He made the door open for everybody, so everybody has access through him. So, but I think because the entitlement to the people of God, and who these chosen people was, and these promises and these bloodlines, like it's a real sensitive subject. Like I said, people are fighting wars behind it, and then when you come as a black man, somebody that you've seen, a culture that you've seen as the less than, or has been portrayed as the less than, or you know what I mean, the have-nots, or the monkeys, or whatever, and then you're saying, man, I have rights to this, what is perceived to be royalty. A lot of people, even if it's true or not, will have problem with you even thinking you're bold enough to make statements like that. You know what I mean? And a lot of it can't be, here's the facts, I mean, it hopefully comes out one day, but it's just people's opinion. But the is a community, this Jewish community, they don't play no games, and I salute them. Like, you know what I mean? I salute the Jewish community. How, yo, man, you talk about the Jewish people, they coming out. I literally wish Christian people do that. Like, you know what I mean? People
Hmm.
be in this industry, especially the entertainment, they talk about Jesus so crazy, and nobody say nothing. Like Jay-Z say, Jesus can't save you. Life starts when the church ends, in that New York, New York song. You know what I mean? There's so much blasphemous and so much imagery that's opposed to Jesus, the upside down crosses or whatever it might be, that is in our faces daily, that just totally disrespects Jesus and his ideas and nobody says anything. But do you say anything? You see what happened with Nick Cannon. Like, you say anything about them Jews, and I respect the respect that they have for the rights of the things they call theirs. And if our community and other communities, Christians or African American or urban or whatever, had I don't have a problem with you know people expressing their culture. I don't think Asian people and Mexican people should all come under one culture. No, I appreciate tacos. I appreciate Chinese food. And I want you to tell me about the nunchucks. I want you to tell me all about, I appreciate Bruce Lee and everything in his culture that I learned, from the gear, from the shoes to the philosophies. Like, you know what I mean? Be
Right.
like water. Like, you feel me? Like, I appreciate cultures, and I don't think people should in no sense let go of their culture and their cultural identity, because we learn from each other. Those are our gifts and jewels. But yeah, I know I was long-winded and done went all the way off topic.
No, but America is a melting pot, and when I say that America, I mean America in a general sense, all of the Americas, down to Brazil, down to
Mhm.
I mean up to Mexico, up to United States, up to Canada. It's a melting pot, and it's always been that way. So without these multiple influences, you wouldn't have the world of today. If there wasn't like so many Africans being brought to Mexico, you wouldn't have some of the freedoms originally pushed by some African slaves that originally were brought there, like Yanga and a bunch of other things like that. And even like, one of the first presidents that they had there, So it's like, I mean, he was half African. So it's so many different types of contribution that the Spanish, the English, the so-called African Americans and the Asians and every culture together have brought and even made new cultures within the Americas, right? Because there's new cultures made out of, mixing up and bringing different elements from around the world. And then you start settling somewhere else and you make new cultures, you make new countries. Mexico is a new country,
Yeah.
these things didn't exist 500 years ago. There was the same people, the way people looked and stuff like that mostly wasn't here. It was Native Americans, right? So there was
Yeah.
a style
Yeah.
and different type of look. And then the Olmecs who lived in some parts of Mexico. But other than that, diversity helps things grow, right? Different humans
Absolutely.
and different people from different places, whether they're from the South, whether of the United States, whether they're from the North, these type of things. I mean, look what it did with hip hop. Look what hip hop did to California. Different
Yeah.
types of influences that were nurtured in different areas created beautiful things. And so, Jewish and whatever you want to call any type of person, everybody's made amazing contribution to the world in general. And I think without these different types of variances, the world would be boring. And you
Absolutely.
got to respect every man. I don't say certain man based on the melanin and different features and things like that. Man, right?
Yeah.
Man in general. God made man, and I think
Mankind.
yes, and I
Yeah.
think when people when people get out of this whole trying to grab people in groups and this whole colonial mentality where they need to, okay, what box do you fit in?
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Instead of just being Gabriel Cannon, right?
Preach. And that's what I had to come to with all, with that metaphor. The cultural things that I was, experienced was pleasing the women. I lost my identity. I became to, I started to find my identity in women, bro. When we was running out there, like, it wasn't that I was really that confident. It was that I thought I had to be, but if I wasn't, I wouldn't be fulfilled, because my fulfillment was, for lack of a better term, a woman opening her legs and showing me that I'm worthy. Like, you feel me? And that wasn't, the fact that you think I'm, whether it's cute enough or funny enough or cool enough or whatever enough for you to give me this. It gave me. It wasn't the yeah the climax. It was mental. It was an ego boost for me, because, like I said, we said, we know I grew up in North Carolina, to where you'll get a black joke quick. You know what I mean? That boy looked like a whole bunch of charcoal. Or that boy looked like a lit match. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
When you step out the car, the oil light come on. Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? These cultural things. And even as I get older, I realize it's in every culture. In every culture, they have a team light skin, team dark skin. In
I
the
mean, that's due,
Hispanic culture,
that's due to colonialists, right? That's the colonial mindset. The colonials
yeah,
just got together, which is not all of certain countries. You can't say like everybody was there, but it was the people at the top who sat around and thought of structures and thought about how they can manipulate people. And they brought a couple of tools with them to do this and copy and paste this. And they set up, they got on boats and they traveled to every country they can possibly find. And they just created this structure every time they went there and copied and pasted. When the Spanish arrived in, Latin America, they saw Native Americans there. And there were some small groups of the Olmecs and different things like that. And, when they got there, they brought Africans more from Africa and things like that. And, after that, there was a lot of mixing that going on for 500 years. And so what you have is they created caste systems. How much more of this do you have of this? How much less of this do you have of this? And this is the language you need to speak. Don't speak Native American, languages. Don't speak African languages. Don't speak this. Yeah. And so now what you have is a melting pot of that, right? So then it's like who's who and what's what, when you start putting that to American standards, right? Because America has these weird separative views where they want to keep things in boxes no matter what they are. Even if it starts variants, even if it has variants of visual phenotypes, they start, oh, well, no, you need to fit more in this box. Oh, no, wait, what do you look like more? You need to fit in this box. So it's this consistent tribalism that kicks on the United States. This is why the United States is in such chaos. And even like how I even say things is like, even like a lot of people don't realize, and I say this to people all the time, is that, even you guys, as far as like the Cannons, you guys have always worked with a very diverse crew. Like the people on Nick's payroll and the people that you guys work with are all different cultures. Nobody is like one type of culture, and Nick treats everybody identically the same and respects them like brothers. I never saw him treat anyone different. I never saw it. I never seen any of you guys do that. I never seen anybody say anything foul or weird about somebody else. Everybody embraced everybody, And one thing I always noticed about you is you always had like a really kind soul, even though, you could make something happen if you need to with the hands, but you always had a real innocent soul. You know what I'm saying? You were always loving to everybody around you. And I always thought that was genuine, of your spirit. It's like, man, you bring this honesty, this pureness to the world where it comes to, it's like Gabe would never really hurt nobody without them doing something foul to him. He has a good energy about himself, and you carry yourself like that.
I would pray for you after.
There you go. There you go. But I mean, I think that's different though, man. But I wanted to say, like, I think a lot of people really don't know people until they really know them. People make these judgments. Like I've been on all sides. I've been in the celebrity circles and groups, and then I've seen, I've been on the other side where I've just been the regular dude walking around, and it's like I see how people think and prejudge. Like, oh, they don't know about this. Oh, those people are this, and they see what they throw in the media, and the media just goes wild. And it's like, wow, if you really knew these people, it's not even like that. Like
if you really walk with it,
right? Nick's the guy who got Nick's career pretty much started, and who's his management, and his right hand man is a Jewish man, and it's like, wow. And then you look at most of his publicists and people he works with closely, they're Asian. It's like, come on now. Like this dude has a diverse crew. Like there's white people, there's Jewish people, there's everybody you can think of, in this clique. So it's like, and he's supporting him. He had groups with, all different cultures, Asians, Spanish speakers.
Girls, they had everybody.
I never saw the guy or the whole incredible company or team ever discriminate on somebody based off of where they came from. It was Southern people, Northern, whatever. He just brought them in.
Yeah, man, and he was dope for that. And Nick kind of understood, like you were saying earlier, the need for everything. You know what I mean? He's the type, he'll sit back, he gonna pull from over here, pull from over there, grab some stuff from over here. Like, you know what I mean? He understood, like, everything and everyone's opinion and idea is valuable, to where you see him, like everybody looking at him, he's the most important person in the room, but he's looking at you because he's actually learning whether it's a mannerism, whether it's something he's gonna put into a character he's thinking about, like, you know what I mean? And he's just, a sponge, you know what I mean? To where, you could definitely always have to turn it on to where he's that guy and he's calling the shots, but in his regular world, he's not, like, he's observing and absorbing, everything. And
right,
you'll see him, he'll get on stage, he'll be like, oh, I know where you got that from. You feel me? And stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean, I think he's just, he's a person who tries to absorb things, and he's always looking for spiritual growth, from what I've always seen. And I think there's pros and cons to that in our world now, because we're such of a cancel culture. Whereas, even like the stuff that he was talking, he probably absorbed that from somebody else, even though he might not realize the weight of what he was saying. I don't think he realized the weight of what he was saying. And I think obviously he realized that, and that's why he made a public apology, because that didn't really come from, I don't feel, his heart. He just was, you start talking to people start telling you stuff, and you start copying what they just said, and now you're just like, what the hell did I just say? Oh God, what did I do? Like, why did I even say that?
Yeah, especially when you're in a position to where, ain't nobody really checking you. What you say goes. Your ideas are gold. They done paid off for 15 years and more. Like, you feel me?
But one bad influence in that, and it's just like you could come out and say something, and you realize you didn't mean to say that, and now the world thinks something else that's not even real, and then you're like, what the hell just happened? Like, that's not even me.
And a normal person would go to Thanksgiving, and they would take that. If you got that ideology or train of thought, you'll bounce it off your pops, and your pops will be like, boy, what? Or you'll go to your friends, and they be like, you might want to check. And your mama be like, baby, that ain't what right there. You know what I mean? But when you're in that position and everybody thinking that and you're right, you don't really bounce a lot of things off of, so you're not really checking your facts, your sort, you know what I mean? You got it, you ate it, it tastes good, and you ready to spit it out before, man, you might want to digest that a little bit.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a wild thing out here, man, and I totally get it. But I don't know. It's a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff has been happening the last couple of years. I do miss LA in certain points, but in certain points I don't. I don't miss people not being authentic. I don't miss going to certain parties and it's just all about the hustle. It's all about the work. I like hanging around people and being around good energy, and that's about it. I don't really care about people who are non-authentic. I like people who want to work, who want to build something, no matter what stage they are. If they're hungry, they want to build things. Let's sit down. Let's talk about ideas. Let's do it. I'm action. I don't talk. I just do.
That's kind of the part I miss too. Just because it's all you never, like, you can have an idea, and that night you could be making it happen. Like, you know what I mean? You can have it. You know what I mean? You don't. It's just the possibilities and the possibilities are a double-edged sword. I'll give you this example to where I remember when we was on tour with Mariah, you're in a VIP section and Mariah right there, and you with her with the mic in your hand, you could get anybody you want. But if you all night and because there's so many options, you don't pick, by the end of the night, you're going to end up going to your hotel room by yourself because so-and-so got drunk. She passed out with her friends. They left. And you look around, it's like, oh, dang, I didn't choose an option. Like, and everybody's gone time you look up. So it's like, options are cool, but sometimes you got to choose and say, okay, this one for me. Cool. I'll be back in the morning. You feel me?
Yeah.
So with life.
No, I feel you 100%, man. I mean, that is a deep. You just said something really deep, and the way that you put it, it was almost childlike, to where it was like the times when you're just looking at, going to the bars or the clubs or bigger events and arenas and things like that, any type of social gathering, and you saw that potential girl out there that was you were attracted to, but then you saw like 500, so that might be possible options per se, right? For I'm over exaggerating it, or maybe not, but you know what I mean, like. When you have so many options, it's hard to make a choice. It's really hard to make a choice because you're just like, I have so many options. So sometimes sometimes having too many options isn't always a good thing because it's harder to make choices. And I know exactly what you mean, going to the bar or a club or something like that, example, and you see 3 girls that or 5 or 6 that could be potential to hang out with or whatever you want to associate with them with. And you wait and you drag it on. You don't want to take the first option.
You don't want to talk to her and she see, and you mess that up.
Yeah.
And then you.
Now you're not nothing, but then you wait too long. Then you go home empty-handed, regardless of that, which is wild because you go home empty-handed and you're like, man, I should have. And I've had nights like those. Obviously, it's like, oh man, you're pissed off at yourself. You're like, man, I could have. Yeah. Why did I just? And then some guy walks over to her. And you're like, oh God, why did I just like?
Yeah, I could have got it. He got it.
Now you're mad. Or the other girl leaves early. You're like, oh, it's like, it's just like I felt that pain plenty of times. I don't like that, and it comes from the root of not making, not being too indecisive. And it's like you want to be indecisive because you're like. you don't want to make the wrong decision.
Yeah, choose too early. You don't want to sell yourself short, but
It's a gamble.
so
And
apply that to a man with a bunch of talents or a bunch of gifts or a bunch of ideas. It's like that man who could, and that's why, I wrote a script called Potential because, you know, your potential could be your curse because you got everything is a potential. You got so much potential to do this and so much, and you end up doing nothing. You end up not putting I had to literally check myself a few years ago and say, like, man, I've never really gave anything 100% because of my potential, because I was good at sports, I was athletic, and I didn't have to give it my 100% to make the team. I didn't have to give it 100%. I didn't have to do these things, and I looked at every aspect of life and realized I've never gave anything 100%, and before I got married too, just check like, yo, I never gave anyone 100, any related 100%, and just, that self-evaluation with, the potential, you know what I mean? Even with choosing a wife or whatever, like, man, you don't want to sell yourself short, but we getting old, baby. Like, you feel me? So it's like, yo, man. So, it just, that double-edged sword of potential.
yeah, and it's that double-edged sword. It's those choices, man. It's just like pros and cons. And just like, do you do this? And then there's the risk. There's always risk. Like even if you're choosing those relationships, like if you choose this person, what happens if they don't stick it out, or you don't stick it out, or you try it out and it's not that good. Now you definitely now you're definitely doing something on the side. Now you're mad, and now you just feel unfaithful. Now you're not holy anymore. So it's like, so now you're just like the zombie. So you don't want to have that burden. You want to be pure. You want to do the right thing. And there's that fear that you might make the wrong decision and not do that right thing. And so that's why I think sometimes there's this limbo land. I mean, it's this like limbo space within yourself to where you're like, hey, which decision is going to sound more balanced or better for me in the long run? And it's really hard to make those decisions looking on the outside. Even when you're choosing somebody, you can look at somebody and say, okay, they look like a potential. They got the right body, the right shape, but that's all superficial. But that's one part.
Usually not the right one.
Right, right. But in the body and shape, and when I mean that, it could be personal, right? It could be your own personal perspective. Like it doesn't have to be the Kim Kardashian body shape. You might like different preferences, but still, I mean, it doesn't really matter. But at certain points, I think sometimes it does because you do have a preference. This is a person you're going to be with, and you want to be able to kind of fantasize about
that's
that person.
key. Like one of my check things before, like you gotta, like, I mean, you gotta be honest with yourself. And if it's like, man, if you about to marry a woman, if it's like, bro, if she don't turn you on when she's stepping out of the shower, 15 years later, she ain't gonna do it for you. Like, you feel me? Like, you gotta make sure you got what you like, And the good thing about God is we don't all like the same thing. And that's where a lot of selfishness and all that people get greedy because they think, oh, it's only enough for me. And we don't realize, like, bro, we don't all like the same thing. Like, so it's always an ample supply because people don't like the same food. People don't like the same type of people. They don't like the same clothing. So there's always enough.
No, you're right. You're right. Totally. It is tricky because you do have so many dynamics. But I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, I've been through that plenty of times where it's just like sometimes you have so many options, you just don't know which one is a good option to take. And I think that does give you like and then being able to be so skilled, you begin to, you're not focused in general. And I think focus is a key issue between both. And it's like, it's really hard to be focused when you know that you have so much opportunity, but you end up being a jack of all trades and, not a master of one. So I've realized, and that's what I even realized coming out of LA is like, hey, you got to focus on one thing first and master that. And then slowly as you grow, then you can start spreading yourself out to do things because now you have more people to help you manage that. But when you're starting off, you can't start off the gate and be doing like 500 different things. You got to find your sweet spot or your door. I mean, there's plenty of people that I work with who started off doing different things in LA. And, some of that just, you have to be ready to be, you have to be ready to be able to be, I don't know, I guess like morph into something else or go into a slight different direction if something happens, right?
Yeah.
You have to be ready sometimes for that, but at the same point, you still have to focus on something. But you have to be smart enough to know when you need to actually, switch that point to leverage that and say, okay, let's switch this direction, maybe go a little bit right here. So you have to be that. You have to be adaptable enough, for sure. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. And
Oh yeah, the Bible said, "Double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." And if you're not focused, I feel the opposite of that is confusion. You're confused, like you got so much going on. Or you're in jeopardy of confusion. Without being focused.
and that's great because even I say sometimes to myself, I'm like, what helps you? I think everybody's list of what may help them be not as confused is different. Like for me, I feel like when you're at a point to where you have financial freedom to enough to where you don't have to do anything else in life, and then you make your choices. I always feel like you're making your choices then, as I say it, as like you're sober, right? Because other than that, you're kind of like
Yeah.
drunk when you're making those decisions. It's like walking in the club, and you're like, man, she's hot. You know what I mean? Whoa,
So the
man.
next morning,
The next morning, you're like, you stop drinking. You're like, oh, what did I do? And I feel like that is what sometimes when
excuse
you're,
me, sir.
and that's what I feel like sometimes you do, man. Like when you're not financially free, you kind of sometimes, and like I said, it's different for everyone. But for me, I feel like it's financial freedom completely. Where if like I don't work for the rest of my life, I don't have to, and then I feel like my choices are more clear. I feel like I'm not drinking because other than that, I make a bunch of decisions, and I was not sober. Because
That's
when
deep.
you're financially free, you can think clearly about your choices because you have all the choices you can make, and you've made a sound decision. Like this is what I want to do based off now whether it works out or not. Whether it works out or not, you are still had more of the clearness to think about your options because you can think about it clearly. You can look back and say, ah, this is I can make this decision based off of where I am right now. I'm calm. I can choose any of these things, but this is where I want to be. You feel more confident, I
That's
feel, in that.
deep, bro. That's deep. I mean, if imagine everything you just said applied to our community, bro. Like the decision these youngsters have to make because of the lack of financial freedom, like the day-to-day decisions. There's certain places you wouldn't go if you wasn't broke, or if you had money. Like I ain't going there. I got money. I'm not like you know what I mean. If like the disparity that comes along without having that freedom, like the fog over your eyes, the limitation of the options, because you don't have that freedom to make a decision that would naturally or normally be clear to you if you just had the power, which is the money, to make it. Like
Man,
which
Gabe, I say it too that I don't know, I get these epiphanies sometimes in life, and it can come from
yeah,
any direction. It doesn't have to come from a so-called genius at every different perspective. Sometimes a homeless person can teach me something, and it's an epiphany. It can be from anybody. So I don't
yeah,
judge people on that because there's always some greatness that somebody has to say or does within any part of the human species in general. But like something that DMX said that was really crazy that I took from was he said one song, he said, the snake, the rat, the cat, the
mhm,
dog. How you gonna see him when you're living in the fog?
oh, yeah,
Holy shit.
yeah. Wow, I see what you're saying now. Yeah. Oh yeah,
Do
just
you
the
see what I'm saying?
whole.
That is crazy. The snake, the rat, the cat, the dog. How you gonna see him when you're living in the fog?
Wow,
That's
yeah,
crazy, right?
yeah.
And like to me,
We
it's
can't
just
even see our enemies because we're not even free enough to cut the grass to see the snake.
right, right. That's exactly what it is. How are you gonna see him when you're living in the fog? And it's funny how he used the snake, the rat, the cat, the dog. How are you gonna see him when you're living in? It's funny. The snake. You could say that's if you want to be religious, you could say that's the devil or whatever. You could
Yeah,
say
yeah,
whatever you
yeah.
want out of that. But it's just like, wow, how can you see all these different things that are coming at you and taking you
But
down?
two, even what if you start misconfusing? You think that the cat is the snake, because how you gonna see him if you
You
live
living
in the
in the
mid
fog.
or some thieves? Like now you think this is a good voice and it's really the snake, but it's offering you something. Like how are you gonna even see that this not good for you?
No,
You
you're
need to start preaching. You need
yeah,
to
man.
start preaching.
Yeah, man. This might happen. I mean, it's deep though. It's deep though. It's like, when I start thinking about those things, I'm like, wow, man, that's freaking crazy. And there's
Yeah.
another thing that I sit there and I tell people too as well is like, and I've said this on the podcast before, like one of my previous ones is like when I was, studying computer science, there was something else that just like kind of just like wowed me. Was like, one of my teachers said, when you declare uh, a variable, you have to give it value, meaning you have to give it a name.
Mm,
So if you without that name, without you giving it a name, it has no value.
mm,
So whatever you name it gives it value.
mm.
That was crazy to me because I
That's
was like,
deep.
holy shit. I was like, man, that means that is so deep because I don't think he even realized how deep that whole, teaching is as far as like the principles of computer science. I was like, holy shit. Did you hear what he just said? So basically, and I thought about how that relates to the entire world, Gabriel, because I'm like,
Yeah,
man,
to life.
yes, everything you give names to gives it a value. And so when you take names, when you take slurs, racial slurs, or bullying, or
Yeah.
words that people say, somebody else is giving you value, right? Somebody is giving you value, and you're accepting that value that somebody else gave you. Somebody gives you a name, somebody gives you a group calling or a tribe. Oh, you're this, you're that. That is all that somebody else giving you a value. So that was the whole backbone of when you start thinking about colonialism and structure. They gave things that were valued. There wasn't these things called, European wasn't a thing. Africa wasn't
Yeah,
a thing.
yeah.
Latin America didn't even exist. It wasn't even on any perspective. America didn't exist. China was there, but at a certain point in time, it wasn't there. I mean, like, it's just like when you keep on digging at things, people add value by naming things, even just calling people names like stupid, ignorant.
Yeah.
And when you,
Stuff. I'm in the school system, bro. That's what I be telling the kids that, and then they begin to believe it. Like, you know what I mean? Their parents,
they let
oh, you
somebody
can't.
gave them value.
Yeah, you just like your daddy. And then that child begins to take on that value of how that person valued their father. And now you ain't even got a bar to live up to because somebody gave you your value. They called you stupid. They said you couldn't read. They said, you know what I mean? Or even the names we call ourselves. I mean, the stuff we do to ourselves
Hmm.
that we label ourselves and give those, those
People
values to.
give it.
But man,
People give it value. So I think I connected to when people talk about mental slavery. I think Bob Marley said something crazy too. He was said, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but whom ourselves can set our minds free."
mm,
I was like, whoa.
yeah, yeah.
And he had another one
I-
that was called what was it? He said if the cap I think it's called like if the cap fit, let them wear it.
mhm.
And then he had what was it? The I shot the sheriff. All these things are like really really cryptic if you listen to these
Yeah.
lyrics. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Sheriff John, what was it? The sheriff didn't like me for what? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time he see me, he said,
Revolutionary
"Kill the
period.
seed," and he said, kill his seed and stop him from letting him grow." So I shot
Yeah.
the sheriff. He killed his seed. Do you know what kind of message what he was basically trying to say? That was a
Yeah.
deep,
Oh,
that
absolutely.
was a colonialistic type of like message he was basically putting in there.
Oh yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Deep,
Like
man.
kill his seed and stop him from grow. So that's why he shot the sheriff, but he
Yeah.
didn't shoot the
Got rid of
deputy.
the authority that's hindering the growth.
Yes, but he used it. He used it in a sneaky way to say,
Yeah.
like, to talk about oppression. Like, they
Yeah.
try to kill the
Absolutely.
seed and stop it from letting it grow. So he shot the sheriff, but he didn't shoot the deputy, of course, right?
Yeah.
Somebody else did that,
He didn't do that
but they
though.
blame me for both.
Don't do, I ain't do both of them.
Yeah, I just thought it was always interesting. Yeah, there's just like a lot of interesting things sometimes people say, and I think sometimes if you stop and listen, it's just like, wow. Some people have some amazing things that you can learn from if you just realize, and sometimes they don't even realize the weight of what they're saying. And if you're able enough to receive that message and take it to another realm where it opens your mind, it can't go back
Yeah.
to its original state unless you have some type of damage.
Man.
Once the mind
Man.
expands, it can't go back to its original state unless it has some damage.
Preach.
So I
That's
don't know. It's
right
deep,
right
man. It's
there.
deep, but wow. I don't know, man. It's been a while, man. It's been it's been crazy. I haven't seen you in a long time. I've been wondering, like, hey, man, what's everybody doing? Because you get on those moments where you're like, I wonder what everyone else is doing, the good times and the fun and
Yeah.
things like that. Like
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
I always remember our time at the Dub Show, at Herman's event. And
Yeah,
do you remember that? And there was like Rick Freeway Ross. We ran into him.
yeah.
And then there was some
I
shooting
think
that went on. He was like, "Oh, I gotta go."
yeah. Oh my goodness, man.
Yeah.
I think it was yeah, I don't even want to say who was up there shooting. It was an artist y'all all know though.
That was like
I was about to
crazy.
say his name.
Yeah, that was crazy. And then I remember walking around with the new boys, and was it Ben or Jay? I forgot their names and stuff like that. But we were walking around with them, and I remember there was one girl. I was like, "Oh man, she's hot." The next thing I noticed, like after I left LA, she was on wildnout.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Somebody was on their PQs that day then.
yeah. I was like, "Yeah, she's hot." And then I remember, we all walked over there. I had the camera, and then like next thing I know, after I left LA, I was like, "Wait, that Britney girl is on wildnout? I remember her."
Oh, I know who you're
That's the
talking
same
about,
girl at the
too.
dub show.
Yeah. She did a lot of stuff.
I still got all that footage. That's crazy. It was me, you, and the other dude from the New Boys.
There's a new boy. I remember yeah, it was a bunch of people up there. I remember that picture with Freeway Ricky.
Yep.
Yeah, Freeway Ricky, all the community work you're doing. That's what it's about, man. It's about getting out here in this community, man. All this, I mean, if you even look at the culture, man, these rappers, bro, like the spirit of murder, the spirit of ignorance has, I feel, risen so high with this new generation, man. It's like, we would have to go through the stuff we went through, but there was always somebody, a good coach, a good, teacher, somebody to point us and steer us in the right direction, man. And this generation, it's like nobody there, bro. It's nobody telling the people that are there, they're pushing them. They're big homies, OGs, whatever it might be. They pushing these kids for destruction, man. And these kids, they feel they gotta support their parents, and there's just a spirit out here that's increased, man. So, it's on us to stand up and make sure we give back to these youngsters, man. We tell them like, what I mean, these steer them from these traps, because we would understand, this was bad, was not, we would understand. All right, we'll get in some trouble, but we ain't playing with the devil. But you know what I mean? They willing to try and do anything, like, what I mean? They getting a hold of these drugs quicker, bro. Like some of these kids I'm mentoring is like, how do you even get a hold of that at your age? Like, I didn't even know that existed until I was like 18, 19. Like, they 14 with it in their pocket. Like, oh my, like, how do you get that? Like, you know what I mean? And it's just the access they have, you know what I mean?
The
Even the
internet, man.
internet it's sped their intelligence up. It's like they know about everything. You can't, and they got and their opinion is so strong. I mean, that's why we got the protests and all the young generation. They stood up, but and that's because their opinion is so strong. And if that's misguided, man, it's so much destruction that could come out this generation if we don't stand up and turn around and say, hey, listen, man, I messed up, and don't fall in these pit holes and potholes, and we really have a purpose and be intentional to speak to these youngsters coming
Oh
up
yeah, I mean,
behind.
because like a lot of people these days, they don't think before they do stuff now. I mean, a lot of things can just be easily hold you down. Like if you say something, from like 10 or 15 years ago, and that was a different person. Now people were just like, they're canceling you from something 20 years ago.
Yeah, literally.
And people say some stupid stuff when they're young. I mean, I know everybody had to go back and look and say, hey, look, and you might read old texts that you might have written to people and your own personal stuff. I'm like, what the hell was I talking about? Like, who?
Bro,
What?
I mean, imagine if we had the internet back in the day. Like I was thinking, like we didn't have Instagram. You couldn't go live. You
But we
feel
had
me?
it.
Like,
But we had it enough to where where we've probably said some stupid shit.
no, absolutely, absolutely. And like I couldn't imagine people recalling. Like, oh my god.
I mean, what was that? There was one guy like a while back ago. I'm not gonna say his name, but I remember he had supposedly hooked up with a girl, and he was doing something on MTV or something like that. And he hooked up a girl probably 15 years ago, and she was underage, and she came out and said, "Oh, she was underage," and his career and his little stuff got damaged. And like, I was like, why does that matter? I was like, yeah, he did something like that, but it was like years ago. But it's like, and he probably realized that was dumb then, or maybe he didn't. I don't know. But like, give somebody a benefit of the doubt. Make sure they're not doing it now. But like, wow. But it's an interesting place.
Well, people don't think you activist for R. Kelly over there.
No, you're right. I mean, it is that way. But I'm just saying, like, people do stupid shit, in general.
No, yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, and
And not advocating that at all, but people do
No, I
stupid
know. I'm just
shit.
joking.
You know what I mean? Like people do some
Yeah.
stupid stuff, and they make mistakes. That's what people do. And it's just the people who don't learn from it. And if it causes somebody pain and problem, then of course that should be dealt with. But like other than that, like everybody. Like I was talking to one person on my podcast recently, and she was talking about like crimes and who was a criminal. I'm like, man. But who is a criminal? Everybody has done a crime. It's just like, have you gotten caught?
Exactly.
I know so many goody two-shoe people that you think have never committed a crime, but they committed a crime, just even down to the smallest thing.
Like
Jaywalking.
I started off like with you, people probably think you a thug.
Right. Yeah, right? I mean, you just never know. So it's like, you just don't ever know. Everybody's done something stupid. When you were small, you might have taken something out of somebody's house, like a toy. That's stealing. You might not realize it.
I feel it's like there's no
everybody sins.
There's no forgiveness for each other. It's like you mess up, that's who you are, and especially for our youth, man. It's like I heard a guy said, man, a person's mind isn't even fully developed into what is it like 25 or something like that. Like the person's mind isn't fully developed. So what I mean? Not giving people not giving nobody an excuse, but being able to forgive one another and understand, because like you said, we all can relate to each other in the wrong we've done. That's one thing for sure.
Everybody screws up. Nobody's perfect. And I'm not saying that just because nobody's perfect, that doesn't mean you need to pay for stuff that you do and you don't need to be remorseful from it. But I think there are some people who hold themselves accountable and realize like, hey, I screwed up something, and they don't ever want to do those things again or associate themselves with that. Yeah. I mean, you can always go back and listen to things that you did when you were a kid and like, what the fuck was that? I was stupid. Like, why did I even do that? Like, that makes no sense. What were you doing? Like, come on, man. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I think you need to have self-awareness, and you need to be able to hold yourself accountable for things. And sometimes people might have been held accountable for things, but then something will get brought up, and then people act like it's new. And it still affects them, which is wild. If you went and, even if you've been a person who've gotten caught for something, you went to jail or you've gotten arrested or whatever it may be, you've served your time, you're out, but then somebody's still judging you. How are you going to get a job?
Wow, that's deep. Yeah. Like if you still labeled a felon, that never goes away. Like how do you change? How do you become new if it's still held over your head? So that's almost like it's stunting your growth. You're not giving me room to grow from here. You're keeping me pigeonholed to the mistake. Yeah, that's deep.
And it's like, when people talk about religion and Christianity and things like that, these things are about forgiveness and growth. And humans in general, we all make mistakes and we grow, whether it's relationships or whatever it may be in life. We grow, we screw up. That's how we learn. Failure is not embraced anymore. Failure is a curse. So you have to that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Now you have to be extra careful of who you date, who you get yourself around, who you associate with, because anybody does one thing screwed up, or you get drunk and you make a joke or you laugh or you say something that offends somebody, you're going down.
And it's just strive for being perfect. If you even with the culture, the makeup, the plastic surgery, everybody's trying the Instagram, the filters, everybody's trying to be perfect, to where when you do see a mess up or a flaw or a booger or a mole or like
what's going on?
It's so like, oh my God, because it's so much that you could do to cover up and lie about the truth. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's so many filters you could have used. So why would you even take that picture? Like, you know what I mean? And it's
I think that's kind of like what you're saying is, if you look at different idols and people that are stars, you have the Michael Jackson who came off as innocent and sweet. But then you have guys like, not bring anybody else's name out, and sorry, Michael Jackson or anybody else, but you have the Mick Jaggers, who might do some crazy ass shit, and it's expected. It's like, oh, it's just Mick Jagger. He's a rock and roll star. He's fucking insane. Yeah. Oh, it's Ozzy Osbourne. He can eat a mouse or eat a rat's head. But like, if you've lived that cookie cutter career, you get sabotaged. Madonna could do something crazy and wear a dildo or whatever it may be, and it's cool. Yeah. But because she's been crazy all her life and doing the shock factor thing, right? But then when you're this nice person like a Michael, or you're perceived to be this perfect person like a Michael Jackson, if you find one accusation of one thing you might have done wrong, whatever it may be, not saying that something could be minimal or big, whatever, whether you can prove it or not, it doesn't matter. If you get an accusation and you're a nice, you look like a nice cookie cutter person, you're going down. You're going to be buried at the stake.
Nick Cannon and the Jews.
There you go. There you go. Just don't you gotta be careful about how you carry yourself. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like the don't get out of line. And if you get out of line, I mean, the old slave. I mean, if you get out of line, we're gonna slap you. You know, we're gonna publicly what I heard. You know who Dr. Boyce Watkins is?
Yeah, I see him. He's always talking about Nick Cannon.
Man, he get on my nerves so bad, bro. He get on my nerves so bad because he's playing into the narrative because he had a whole video talking about the buck breaking of Nick Cannon, the buck breaking of Nick Cannon.
Oh, he's on it. He's always talking about it.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so let's describe buck break. Buck breaking is okay. They would put the slave in front of all of his people, all the other slaves. They would do these foul, nasties, have sex with him, and beat him down and tear him down, right? And do that. Okay, so now if the slave goes back to a community of people who were strong and who supported him, the effect of the buck breaking would never take place. But because the slave master or whatever, the people, a narrative, they begin to say, don't ever do that. Look at him. He tried to run away. Look at him. He tried to be the exception. Look at him. He tried to make a change or difference. And so because of the people's opinion of the slave, that what puts the buck breaking into effect. Not that you broke the man, not the fact that the people are now in fear, the fact that the people are now turned against the very guy who tried to show you there's a way out and started shaming him and saying, look at what happened to him. Look at what happened to him. So now he's not a hero. Now you're pointing to him as an example of what not to do instead of saying, well, if they did that to him, they can't do it to all of us, and joining forces with him. Now you have made him the example of what not to do. Now he's looked at as somebody who done something wrong or shouldn't have, you know what I mean? So people like Boyce Watkins, like, bro, you labeling, okay, yeah, they publicly whooped Nick Cannon. You said, well, he used buck breaking, but why is it effective? It's effective because Negroes like you are now turning Nick Cannon into somebody who didn't speak out, somebody who, now you're saying, look at him, don't do what he did, don't go get a bunch of money and still try to tell the truth. It's like, well, what did you expect him to do? Get a bunch of money and act like everybody else? If he would have did that, he would have had a bunch of names to call him. But now that he done tried to be rich and stand up for his people and got whooped for it, why are we looking at him like, oh, we knew they was gonna do it? We knew it. He knew it. He still stood up. So we should be calling him king. We should be saying you a champion, bro. Not saying the buck breaking of Nick Cannon. And people like Boyce Watkins, like, brother, you too educated to actually fall into the exact narrative that you're describing.
And what narrative do you think that he's kind of describing? Like a separation or what do you feel like?
I think he's describing a power structure. He's saying that this is what happens when you try to eat from the master's table and then speak against what the master's doing in the house. He says this is what has happened. So he's pointing at a Nick Cannon and said, look at you, look how idiotic you were in the house, and now you're telling the house secrets. But that's what the buck breaking is. That's why they beat the Nick Cannon in front of, they made him a martyr. That's why they put him on display and whooped him. So all you can say, look at him, don't do what he did. Instead of saying, look at him, that should inspire us to, even if it's not the way he did it, that should inspire us to do something, because he didn't even have to do it. He could have kept his mouth shut, kept eating all the good cornbread and letting y'all eat the chitlins if he wanted to. You know what I mean? He could have kept doing that, but he got some good cornbread in his mouth. Oh, what happened?
No, I can still see cornbread.
Yeah, he got some good cornbread in his mouth, but he's still telling y'all, hey, man, they feeding y'all them chitlins. Y'all could come get, you know what I mean? And so instead of demonizing him and saying, look at the Nick Cannon, it's buck breaking, I think we should say, hey, he might not, we should applaud the effort that, he didn't have to say that. He didn't have to whisper, you know what I mean? So that's what I think he's playing into the narrative of buck, because buck breaking is to shame you in front of your people and put them in fear to where they never take the same actions. So I'm gonna do something so bad to you that the next person who see, they'll never do that because they don't want it to happen to them. So if I then say, yeah, don't do that because look at what they'll do to you, I'm playing the narrative.
So
Instead of saying he's a champion, lick his wound, somebody wipe his wounds. He got beat in front of him. He's a champion, and idolizing because God don't want you to idolize nobody. But looking at that action, not making him a hero, but looking at the action as heroic instead of oh, you rich, why would you? You know what I mean? Instead of saying you've been buck broke and say no, man, you a hero and you risked it all to get this message out.
I think weren't people saying that? Weren't people saying like, "Oh, sorry, Nick, we got your back" and stuff like that? I saw like a bunch of stuff like that on Instagram and Twitter and things like that. But then as soon as he apologized for what he was saying wrong, then that was when I saw the Boyce, start pushing these types of content out about saying like, "Oh, Nick, look at him."
And so and a lot of my issues with him is like, he's saying, "Oh, well, Nick should have stood on it. Nick should have stood on." Okay, Nick realized like, some of the stuff Nick said was kind of wrong. As he was educated, he was man enough to come back like anybody. If I do something wrong to you, or like I'm be man enough to come back and say, "Hey man, I was wrong. Can we fix this?" So you know what I mean? He was man enough to say, "Yo," but I think somebody like a Boyce Watkins, who on their platform, he's not even saying the word Jew. He don't get his little platform unmonetized or whatever, the algorithm or whatever. He's saying those people because on these platforms we can't. How they do. So Nick was bold enough to say their name on his platform that was bigger than yours. He's bold enough to say their name on your little platform. You're not even going to say the name because you don't want to get unmonetized or whatever the verbiage is. You're not even going to say the phrase so you can keep your income stream coming. But you would demonize him for saying, "Oh, I made a mistake, but hey, let me get my little show back. Let me get my little show back." You feel me? But you won't even say it to risk your little YouTube platform. But you mad at him that he went to go get his syndicated network television back. But you won't put your YouTube on the line by saying what I'm saying. It's just, for me, it's like, yo, man,
Crabs in a bucket.
I'd rather,
Crabs in a bucket.
Exactly.
Man. But people don't want to hear that.
If you're not gonna push the ball forward, please do not take because you'll get a backcourt for that. Please don't go that way. If you're not gonna go forward with it, just
right. So you're basically saying like you feel like Boyce should be like, all right, Nick Cannon said something, whether he felt whether he realized it was wrong or not, or whatever it may be. Healy said something, and you're basically saying like, Boyce, you didn't say anything, and look at you, you're still, but you're calling Nick names, but look at how you're doing things. You're still doing the same things that you're accusing Nick doing. You're still doing the same thing, but you're accusing Nick of it.
Not even that you're doing it. You won't even do. He had more to lose than you.
Yeah,
and he went further in his stance than you. You won't make the stand, so you won't say their name, the culture, you won't say the name, so you ain't willing to risk yours. So now you're talking about a person who risked more, who lost more than you, put more on the line, had more than you. You're talking about somebody who with more balls, more cojones. Like, you feel me? Like, cojones. Period. Like, he put more on the line than you, and you won't even do it, but you have the time to capitalize on the talk about it. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying the character of a man. That's like me getting beat up by the bully at school, right? I go and I fight the bully at school, and I lose the fight. But then I'm getting clowned by somebody who won't even come to lunch because the bully's in here. Like, bro, you won't even come to the lunchroom. At least I stood up and fought him, but you won't even come to lunch. And that's what I feel it is. It's like, bro, man, at least he fought the bully, bro. You won't even say the bully's name. You know what I mean? And that's just what it is for me. Like, yo, bro, as men, as character, as, as just man, it's true. Like, for me, it's just manhood. Like, bro, like, if you're not going to fight, why are you talking about it? Go cheat or go put some pom-poms on, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't talk to people who's fighting. That's like us dissing the soldiers who lost their life in the battle. Oh, that's just somebody, they was fighting for nothing. It shouldn't have been for. Man, I appreciate what he gave his life for. Even if he was confused and he thought he was fighting for a greater America and they didn't care nothing about him because he was black. I'm not going to disrespect all the black soldiers because this country didn't care nothing about you. I'm going to applaud your courage for putting your life on the line, fighting for this country, even if it didn't care about you. On the game.
That was almost like a rap, spit, I don't know,
Yeah.
man. I think you said a lot of things that were really powerful, and I think there's a lot of substance to some of those things, and I think the problem is like you're gonna have this whole thing where it's just like, I don't know, man. I think what Nick apologized for was, he had great and right intentions to do so, and I think it was awesome that he did that. Because what he did say sounded kind of a little bit out of pocket in a way where it just sounded bad. It sounded bad, and it sounded, I think, wrong ways than he intended it, and it sounded hurtful. And I think he was man enough to at least acknowledge that and apologize for that and move forward. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of whatever it may be or whatever, he did it. And he did say something that might have been very controversial and, offensive to many. So, but to still come back and to say, yeah, and acknowledge that you're sorry and that you made a mistake, I think that's a big thing. But I think like you're right, Boyce, he's not even doing what he's criticizing Nick to be doing.
That's the bottom line, bro. Like, bro,
It's kind of
yeah, I mean,
hypocritical, is what you're saying.
I listen to him. I respect him until it's like, yo, bro, you not what? Like, and even our whole community, we do each other like that. Like, not like me. I'm not sitting here agreeing with everything he said. That's some personal stuff I don't agree with Nick Cannon about. Like, you
Right.
feel me? But at the same time, bro, like, if you out there fighting, homie, and you fighting for something bigger than you, and you like, man, I can't step on your toes and then go rally a group to be against you. And you actually putting in work, even like, you know what I mean? If there's a guy on the corner, he's trying to help the community, and he's not, you know what I mean? He's giving the community a bunch of stuff, a bunch of they don't want, and he's trying to help. I would go out there, hey, bro, they don't even like that over here. Try this. And I would try to give him some advice to help him or to try to, you know what I mean? Other than to,
Right.
hey,
So
man,
you're
get off
saying
my block.
right. So you're saying basically like you feel that Boyce should be embracing him and supporting him, and trying to help him instead of just like adding on to the fuel. Right. Nick already got hit for saying something that was, not in character and that was not good and that wasn't cool, that was hurtful to people. But instead, Boyce just jumped on top of him as like, oh wow, look at you. You're just an example. What happens when you
He made the buck breaking work. It wouldn't have worked if you didn't have that narrative. If you applauded his effort, it wouldn't have been buck breaking. It would have been the beginning of a revolution. But it's buck breaking when now you're in fear. Now you won't say a name. Now you've seen him get whooped in front of everybody, and now you're in fear. You won't speak out. And now the only person who's at fault is the guy who risked everything. The only person we're talking about is now the only person we have a name for. You won't even say their name, so we're not even classifying the history. We ain't saying if he's what he said is fact checked or nothing. Now, only thing we can do is demonize the guy we just see already get his flesh ripped in front of us.
right.
Got his, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that's crazy. That's kicking a brother when he's down,
Right.
especially when you're a leader in the community, especially when you placing yourself on a platform, especially when you have an ear or some type of realm or of influence. It's like, brother, man, you're not helping. And that's what our community done from the kings. And what if Malcolm and Martin, what they did near the end of their lives? But you know what I mean? Instead of saying, hey, man, we don't agree here, finding the points where we agree at and pushing this narrative, because Boyce Watkins and Nick Cannon could do a whole lot. There's probably a whole lot they agree about, but you done got into name calling, and because of what this man stood for, that you probably agree with, but just ain't man enough to say. And now you like, you know what I mean? So it's like, bro, you could preach as much as you want, but your actions say so. For me, everything you said prior to that is in default, because you seen a young man who was probably, I'm sure, and I almost know was inspired by you, tried to take his understanding of a stance for a lot of stuff you in agreement, and you came and you shot a bullet at him too. Like, bro, man, you couldn't bring the brother a band-aid. You couldn't, like, you know what I mean? You couldn't DM him something. You couldn't, no, you seen that there's a hot topic, there's a brother down. And even if Nick was completely wrong, if he said something completely crazy, he's down. He's hit. The boy was contemplating suicide on his Instagram. Now you gonna say he's somebody buck? You look up the definition of buck break. Like, that's what we do to each other. We see that the successful and a lot of people don't know. People was waiting. You see how people with Nick was shining. Nick got diamond shoes. You know what I mean? Nick got $2 million shoes, the most expensive shoes in the world. So people was waiting. I mean, that's probably he go through girls like he go through socks. People was waiting on a reason to say, look at you. The boy's a young staff writer, and his black people. because black people couldn't figure out how this little corny nigga doing what I couldn't do, and I'm better than him, whether it's rapping, I'm funnier than him, whether, Nick is that jack of all trades guy, master of none, but he making it work. So a lot of our own community, like if you look at Nick's career, our own community really didn't work. That's what he's been striving for. Like, yo, why my black folks ain't messing with me? The nigga got, he didn't bring out his daddy's gang ties until recently, and you know what I mean? But for a while, Nick has been striving for, not even for a while, his whole career, for his own people to accept him. White people accepted Nick Cannon with no hesitation. White people buy everything Nick Cannon put out. Like it ain't a question about them. He ain't got that. He ain't got his fist in the air at everybody rally because at 17 he had the hearts of the white community. The thing the boy been fighting for is his own people. He can't figure out, man, how the hell am I doing all this? I'm giving platforms for comedians to come up, for everybody to get on. I'm putting people. And why they keep, it ain't the white people think Nick Cannon's corny. They think it's hilarious. They say it's hilarious. It's the black people doing it, and it's been his whole career. So then the nigga get woke. He go to college. He went to Howard, historically black college, and you know what I mean? Trying to, yo, man, I got everything that y'all niggas want. But he don't care about. He been rich since 17. His thing is like, yo, what's up with my people? And so he look around. He think he make a stance for his people. Yeah, he done got a bunch of stuff. He done went to college real. He finished that fast, knocked that out. Like he do a script. He knocked school out. Got a bunch of knowledge. Didn't really check a lot of. You know what I mean? He's saying stuff, trying to empower his people, not trying to get a check. Cannon's class wasn't paying the twins tuition. You feel me? He trying to get the and then his own people turning around saying like, oh, you should have kept it. And it's like, bro, yeah, that hurt him, man. He thought that turban, and he that like, man, what else can I do for y'all? Like, what else can I do for my community? I put my movies on hold. So yeah, man, he probably torn. I know this, like, man. But like I said, it's our mentality. It's black folks, man. We see he down. We see, and brother Boyce Watkins with all them PhDs or whatever. Instead of saying, hey, brother, you probably could have came at it like, you put the caption as buck breaking? Like, good God. Well, it worked because of you. It worked because of everything that followed after you put that title up. It worked because of the fear you spread. Nick didn't spread the fear. He did the action. But what was spread was the narrative about him. That's why the buck breaking worked to a T.
Right.
If Nick's action inspired his community, they would never do it. They would never. If Killing King inspired people, the black community, oh, they would never. They killing them ain't gonna work. They like roaches. 50 more gonna come. But no, you kill the leader. And Harlem Nights, it ain't about how many people you shoot. It's about who you shoot. Man, you killed. It's gonna put everybody else in fear. It's gonna put it put everybody else in fear. So you knocked the young successful. We thought the white folks messed with Nick Cannon, and we just seen them whoop them. Oh Lord, y'all better not say nothing, boy. Y'all got tattoos, you know what I mean, or whatever it might be. So, yeah, man.
Yeah, it's wild. You said a lot of deep stuff, and I think overall, I think regardless of the fact, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that it took a big man for Nick to go back and say that he was wrong and to acknowledge that, regardless of whatever it may be, And I think people should have just take that as a hey, that had to be hard to admit anything that, hey, look, I feel like I did something wrong, and to publicly say that, and then not have your community support behind that just hurts even worse.
Man,
so
who else he doing it for?
Right. I mean, so it's basically, you're kind of saying that, the community itself wasn't empathetic to Nick Cannon, and what he was going through, what he was dealing with, and and the things that he might have been saying were very controversial, but he still went and said a bunch of controversial stuff. And he tried to push this message, or he tried to be, woke for a community, but it just didn't end up, it didn't end up turning out that way completely, like he might have drawn it out or thought of it might be. In the community kind of just jumped on the bandwagon of slaughtering him, and he's just trying to like feed his family, and he's just trying to do the right thing. And he acknowledged that he made some mistakes, and he said some things wrong, but even him just even saying things that are controversial or that may be wrong, or are wrong, just still put him in the doghouse with his own community, who he was originally trying to awaken. Right? Is that kind of what we're saying?
Yeah, I mean, even just hearing you, man, I just thought of this. So don't, it ain't perfect, but it's almost like if you make our community shitty cuz, the dude who killed Nipsey Hussle, and if you take our leaders and our people who speak out as the Nipsey Hussle, and our community is the people who's supposed to have your back. We are part of the same set. They was both rolling 60 Crips. You know what I mean? And maybe Nipsey, because of his success level, maybe he wasn't supposed to be speaking on the topic of snitching. Maybe it wasn't in it business. Like, you know, you rise above that, bro. Them gang ties, you probably should have. Maybe Nick Cannon wasn't even supposed to be speaking on the Jewish community. Maybe, you know what I mean, bro? You right, like, you know what I mean? Secretly tell them that in the back room to get your money. Maybe they probably did step into some waters that, I could have avoided. But man, the community murders you because they feel you was out of pocket. The community, the people who's supposed to have your back, who's put in place to protect your community, man. We go back a few years, 34? The black church was the our community. You know what I mean? Was if we had a foundation, it wasn't like this. You know what I mean? It was to get at us, you had to bomb our churches, the places we all gather. There were many families would come to one place and all become one family. Like, you know what I mean? And we ruined our idea of unity, our gang with, if I'm still running on the metaphor, and we're murdering our leaders, the people who's making us, who's showing that there is a difference. You know what I mean? Like, the Nick Cannon showing us that we can't come from Southeast San Diego and marry a Mariah Carey, a Nipsey Hussle, who can show us we can come from rolling 60 Crips and be with a Lauren, an actress. You know what I mean? Like, and then they'd be our own people who, like, man, only thing we doing is the only thing Nick was doing was in his community. A lot of people say he wasn't supposed to be like, bro, you should have moved to Beverly, trying to get back to his people. The only reason why Nick was speaking on that topic was for his people. And then it's his people that comes and pulls the trigger. It's like, yo, man, if we had more support, people wouldn't be that easy to attack us. We wouldn't be that vulnerable. It wouldn't be that easy to tear these people down. It wouldn't have been that easy. The Malcolms, the Martins. It wouldn't be that easy. Cancel culture, you would have, like, you know what I mean? There's some people, Vlad TV. Look at Vlad TV. You couldn't cancel Vlad TV. I don't care. Like, how many you couldn't cancel because there was some people who just weren't going for it. Like, yeah, we hear you. Yeah, Vlad this Farrakhan. Not distant, but misquoted. And it's like people stood up, some powerful people was trying to cancel Vlad. Man, it didn't happen. Why? Because there's some people who didn't allow it to happen. So in his community, you know what I mean? And that's what we don't have.
I see what you're saying. So basically, like, support for the culture in general, and basically what you're saying is, if that support wouldn't have been there, it wouldn't have been so easy to attack him for things like that and to tear him down. And even though Nick acknowledged,
it wouldn't have been of effect. If you attack them and they come back stronger, attacking them is the last thing we want to do. We try to manipulate them or trick them or something. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, he realized. I mean, basically, what you're saying is like, yeah, Nick realized he'd said something wrong and that was hurtful to people, and he apologized for it. But at the same time, he didn't need to be attacked by his own people. On top of that, after he was already kicked down on the ground, and that is basically the narrative. That's basically what you're saying is like, hey, Nick was kicked down by a lot of his own people at a point where he was already down. He said something, he realized it was wrong, and he apologized for it. But his intentions was to really try to embrace his people, and he made some mistakes in saying some things that hurt other people, and it might have not been sincere, or obviously wasn't sincere in his own personal feelings. But he said something, and that kind of that pissed off a lot of other people because it hurt them. They went through pain themselves, and so they just saw that as like, yo, man, you can't be saying this stuff because this type of talk is what got us killed, blah blah blah, if I such and such. So I get the perspective, and I get what you're trying to say exactly. And, not having that other support, it's kind of like when you get in trouble at school, for doing something really bad or wrong, but then you were trying to do something else, in hopes that you were trying to, help somebody else. But then on top of that, you went home, your parents jumped on you.
Yeah.
You didn't need that. Like you already got hurt, and you already got penalized by the school, but now you went home and your parents jumped on you and your whole family. So it just makes it even worse.
Imagine if we had the support. Imagine if you offend a community and their whole community comes and checks you on that. The whole community comes, right? And there's one man standing against a whole community. Only thing you have then is reprimand. But if another community comes, what happens is a peace treaty between two communities. So if just one person standing against a whole community of people, it's whooping, it's beat down, it's but when this two community shows up, now there has to be terms of agreement. You feel me? And we miss the opportunity to create terms of agreement because there's nobody on the other side to have the conversation. So a lot of times if you look where change and growth, things has to be broken down. Turbulence has to happen, and then things grow from there. So when we look at, okay, things are bad, there are misunderstandings. These people want to talk. These people want. Nobody showed up but Nick Cannon. No, and these people and they're his own people talking about him. So there's no opportunity to create peace between two communities because there's a community who refuse to show up on the behalf of themselves, because there's a lot of black people in the community who think the same exact thing, but we ain't even showing up to defend not even just the person who said, just our own views. Well, no, I don't agree with Nick Cannon, but as an African American, I do agree with this, or I don't agree with Nick Cannon. You know, so we're not even coming for the conversation. We're just turning and pointing fingers.
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, that's a deep conversation. Like, yeah, it's really deep. I think you mentioned a lot of deep stuff. And I think like there's a tricky point because like at a certain point you don't want to say the wrong things. You don't want to offend people and hurt people. You know, not just because it hurts your career per se, it also because it's just not a right thing to do. I mean, sometimes people want to say a message and they want to communicate, they want to express themselves, but it doesn't mean they have to hurt other people to do it. I think when you say things that hurt other people, you know, when you're trying to express things, that's when it just becomes this really, is it worth it, and is it wise? I think when you hurt other people and you make them feel pain by your words, that's when it becomes a point of, wait a minute, did what I say or what I'm speaking of, is that really helping things or is it making it worse? And I think what Nick Cannon, and I can't speak for him, but I think what he realized is that what he said didn't make things worse. I mean, didn't make things better. It made it worse. And let me just be a man and just say, hey, look, I did some research. I talked to these people. At least I talked to people, and I realized, I acknowledged that I made a mistake. And I went out and publicly said this, where a lot of people wouldn't even have done that. You know, he acknowledged it, but then he just didn't need the whipping when he went home.
Yeah. I mean, even if I'm not opposed, I'm from the South. I'm not opposed to the whooping when you go home. But one thing, you know, and I would commend my father for, like, you know, after the whooping, it's an explanation. You know what I mean?
Of why?
Listen, son, because I love you, and because if you go out there in the streets and if you do that, son, and the police is called on you, and there'd be nothing I could do about it. Now, after a butt whooping and you, and you hear that truth, and you hear that love, and you hear that reasoning behind, and you realize it ain't because he just felt like beating them. It was for my own protect. You know what I mean? So, you know, the dialogue that we're not even allowed to have. You know, the Boyce Watkins, they're feeding a perspective to where, man, here's a perfect opportunity for a very smothered topic that's on the table. The world is talking. Let's talk about the conversation. Let's talk about let's not talk about Nick Cannon. He grew up on Nickelodeon. Like, okay, but good thing he brought it up. Now let's talk about it. Okay, the Nick Cannon, the comedian boy, he brought it up.
But
now let's talk.
But what was it? But when you say talk about it, when you say talk about it, because people, you know, and I just want to make sure it's clear, because when people chime in, they're gonna be like, oh, what do you talk about? What do you mean by talk about it?
The topic, I mean, if, you know, like I said, in the religious circles, I mean, from what they were offended over, is it any truth that the African Americans in the Americas could possibly be connected to the lineage of the Jewish people? You know what I mean? If that's what offended you, because from my understanding, he's saying that the Jews is not the Jews and the black people are the true Jews, and that's what, like, hold on, man, like, oh, and that seemed like what that community is like, hold on, you're saying we're imposters, and we're saying, you know, and a lot of people point to the book of Revelations as passage that said those who say they're Jews but are not. A lot of people point to the Exodus, or you know, in the Old Testament, to where, you know, they says that the children of Israel will go back into captivities via ships. You know what I mean? And they're associating all of these things to the African American experience because they're looking at the people, the tribes, the lands where these people come from, and they're saying what God said in these prophecies that's supposed to happen. These things happen to one specific group of people who've been enslaved like this. And the Bible is very specific. And, even with the names and genealogies, but even with the number of years of captivity, the 400 years of captivity from black people. So black people are looking at that and looking at the Bible and saying, it say 400 years. We was in slavery for, you know what I mean? And they're just looking at these things and they feel like they're awakening to truth. You know what I mean? So if that conversation is on the table, let's talk about it. If it's so serious to take a man's livelihood, okay, well let's figure that out. Let's not beat the boy up in the middle of the streets, because it's obvious need to be some clarity here.
Right.
Because a lot of people believe this. A lot of
So
people.
you're saying basically.
So let's bring clarity.
So you're basically saying like the substance of, of African Americans being descendants of Jewish people, or are descendants of Jewish people. So in some such are part of the Jewish people, in general. And you're basically saying that, whether somebody agrees or disagrees with that or not, let's sit at the table and talk about it, intelligently, and not be like, and instead of just like, canceling somebody.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah.
But like, let me say something else too. Is like to say that some African Americans or whatever are not part of Jewish heritage. I think there's Ethiopian Jews, right? I mean, Jews aren't actually Jew isn't like a race. It's this people of a religion, and I know many Jewish people will agree with that. So it's like there's Ethiopian Jews. There's all kinds of Jews. The Jews were like what 13 tribes per se. I don't want to get totally stamped in on there on exact numbers, but there's 13 tribes. So those tribes went and spread all around the world. So I mean, it's very possible for African Americans to have Jewish ancestry recently, and also the Jews of Europe to be Jews as well and have descendants of that. It's very possible for all of them to exist at the same time. I think there's a possibility for all of that, and I think like maybe that conversation should be talked about in that realm, because I think it's really an open conversation. It's like, but I think like when you start off with more of like maybe it's just a delivery of how it was said, right? Maybe it's delivery of saying this person's an imposter right off front. That probably pissed people off. That would piss me off.
In the simple truth that you just spoke, right? If the simple truth is that, I mean, you just spoke, it's not like a color or people, it's like very diverse. For that simple truth, if there's a climate that the people that look like this, and if there are specifics, and you're saying, well, the specifics, if you go back in time, it wasn't specific like that. And if nowadays it's very specific, a nose, a Chaim, or whatever, I'm forgetting, you know what I mean? If it's very specific now, but if we go back, it wasn't, and it was more universal to more, it included more people. If I'm trying to be a private sect and distinct group of people, I might have an issue with you opening my group. You know what I mean? Especially if there's
but Ethiopian Jews are widely accepted by other Jews as being Jews, from my understanding.
Kind of, but
it's not. But worldly, it's not so common. It's not so commonly known, right?
It's about a bloodline, because you can convert to Judaism. You know what I mean?
But the Ethiopian Jews are not converts. They're part of the tribes per se, from what I understand.
Yeah, and so they're so if somebody went to Ethiopia and they went and converted a bunch of Ethiopians, would be a different than bloodline. Then no. Right, Moses married an Ethiopian woman, and then there's Ethiopian blood in that. You know what I mean? So when those facts start coming out, you know what I mean? You start looking at the fact that, okay, Egypt, if Moses wasn't of those people, but when his mother put him in the river and he was in the Pharaoh's daughter took him in, and he was able to blend in with those people, they had to look similar, because nobody would have believed that that was the king's daughter. So That's Israelites deep. And the Egyptians had to look similar to each other. So when we read the Egyptian history and we see that their nose has been shot off, and we see what the Egyptians, when we realize that, the movies of the Egyptians, the Charleston or whatever, those wasn't the true identity of the Egyptian people. You know, the Egyptian people was a darker race of people and they had wider nose. And so then when you say, well, Moses blended in with them people like they were his family and nobody could tell the difference, you will then have to associate Moses to being a darker, you know what I mean? So when you
Right, but
start putting
right when you
these
start
things
putting these things
together,
together, it starts showing a trail of there has to be a certain visual look at that period of time. But I would also say that
start looking like the Bible's
does
black.
but I mean, and this may be so, but I think my point is in general is like, does that necessarily denounce that other Jews aren't Jews because they look a certain complexion, right? Because I mean, you're talking about thousands of years ago, right? Some of those, I mean, if depending on where you go, right? Like if you go to another country, if like you're a person of that time and you went to Asia, for example, and you're one of them, or you're five or four people of that group and went to Asia, eventually you would all blend in with the people that are around you. And then your kids would eventually start looking like that area you're surrounded. But you wouldn't be able to tell that their great grandparent, one of their great parents was a person from Israel, per se, just giving an example, right? So I just think like this, I think people are too stuck with the whole narrative of like that to be a part of this tribe or these cultures or these 13 tribes, that they have to look a distinct way. And maybe at first they might have looked a distinct way, but maybe after
Yeah,
the tribes split up and went, 13 tribes split up and went all around the world, that they all look different now.
absolutely.
All Native
Absolutely.
Americans that
But
came
then,
all
then
Native
that question
Americans that
would
came
be,
to the United States don't all look the same. I mean, they all went different areas when they came to the Americas, right? You have different
so then
tribes.
the
The
question
Cherokee
would
look
be,
different.
the question would be, who has the problem?
That
Who's
gets deep.
trying to who's trying to have specific rights over this identity? Who has the issue? I don't think it's the African American people. They just say, "Oh, for real, us too." Like I think they're at an awakening stage to where it's like, this Bible we've been reading the whole time was about, you know what I mean? And people are saying, "Ain't no way it's about y'all. Y'all ignorant." Like you know what I mean? Or
But
not
see, you know
necessarily
what though?
meant that.
I think the root of that really has to go back more with colonialism issues more than it has to do colonialism issues and oppression with identity and feeling like you need to claim an identity or you have to belong because someone has told you that you don't have an identity and you don't have value. So now you're out in the wilderness looking for value, right? Remember,
Mhm.
you know, um, in order to give a variable value, you have to give it a name. And I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of people are looking for this value instead of looking in themselves. I mean, I think just besides even being an ancestor of, being an ancestor of a Jewish person or being Jew or whatever it may be in your family, that's cool. But there's so many different things that, people in Africa or people with some African or multiple African lineage have as far as history, that's just one small piece of many. And I think like there's
I
so many
mean, because
different things to talk
identity is
about.
so huge. You
It
know,
is.
identity is so huge
But
because,
that one is
you know,
so trapped to like the Bible though. That's more like a religious thing. Like, oh yeah, it seems like more like ego. So this person was more like me, but at the same time, certain tools were used to conquer and enslave people.
absolutely, and that's one of the biggest issues. So I mean, if it's like it's an identity issue. So if you know me being a Christian black man, one of the hardest things and the first things that I'm gonna come against trying to tell a black man about Jesus in America, one of the first things that I'm gonna get is a white man gave you that religion. A white man gave you that Bible. That's going to be the first thing a black person in America who don't believe or who's not a Christian will probably tell you. Why would you believe in a white man, Jesus, and a white man, and they use that book to enslave us? Now, if we understand where that comes from, if we just simply look at the beginning of the Bible at the maps, like man, those are places in Africa. If we look at the terrain and the land, we will have to acknowledge that yes, the in that stage and in those times during slavery, we wasn't able to read. Why wasn't we able to read? They didn't want us to read what? Dr. Seuss? No, they didn't want us to read the Bible because then they started giving it to us. They started telling us what it said. Because if we found out that hold on, this is not coming from them. This was about people from lands. These was about people from over here that look like, you know what I mean? So it was also a manipulation to get us to where even if that book is about your culture, it has anything to do with your identity, now it's been given to you in such a evil slavery way to where now it looks is looked at a tool of destruction. It was looked at as a tool of manipulation instead of, yo, this is, you know, these are, you know, the slaves used to sing songs and codes about, you know, those stories and, you know, to get to freedom. But we've been so manipulated and used about what that actually is. So the identity of someone, if my dad was a drug dealer, you couldn't tell me nothing, like, you know, just about like my brother Nick Cannon, like you can't tell me because of the identity. I began to place my whole life behind that identity that was shown to me. If you take slaves, that there was no identity, all of you guys were slaves, all of you guys was, and I believe that, you know what I mean? If I don't believe that my dad was a hero, my dad worked hard in the community, I have nothing to strive for. I have nothing to associate with, you know. And then, you know what I mean, like these kids in these schools, if, you know, most of the times it wasn't that we just wanted to do the right thing. It was that somebody expected more of us. You know what I mean? It was that somebody expected better of us. Somebody expected you to pass that test. So that's why you passed the test. There was somebody who expected you to be in that class. So you, even though your friends was telling you to skip, because of somebody else's expectation of you, that's what made you become who you are. You know what I mean? When I didn't expect nothing of myself, I didn't have it in me, but because my grandma kept telling me I'm faster than fast, I'm quicker than quick. You know what I mean? And, you know, we become what people, like we were saying earlier, the words and what people invest in, the seeds that are planted in us. And if there's no identity, there's nothing to draw from, there's no history. And I think that's where, you know, everybody's striving to be a part of this holy bloodline or this, you know what I mean? Um, because of the history and because of who it causes you to identify with.
Right. So it basically, I mean, but like, and that points me back to the same thing. Kind of the root of the issue is really, identity. Trying to have more identity because when a certain culture doesn't feel like they have much of identity and don't know much of their identity, they're trying to grab onto any, powerful identity they possibly can or any lineage they possibly might notice or be notified because it's not thorough, it's not really known, right? It's still unknown.
Yeah.
When you start talking about people who have some lineage of African ancestry, whether it's a lot or more, a little bit, whatever it may be, when they're tracking down that ancestry, they're not really sure of that heritage and like what history it is attached to because it was pretty much erased when you start talking
Yeah.
about those who have some or all African lineage, right? Within,
Mhm.
the Americas, whether it's South America, whether it's the DR, whether it's Mexico, whatever it may be, there's variants of it. So when people find out they have this lineage, it's like, well, where does that come from? Is there any pride from that? Is there any greatness and history from that? Because besides that, only thing you see now, relatively now, is Americans, right? With the music
Yeah.
and the hip hop and the rap. That is the image of what I would probably say is African American
Mhm.
is those identities. The Boys in the Hood and all these other movies like that, and hip hop and rap and you know um, you know Yeezy and all that stuff. That is what the world thinks is African American, not people sitting in Africa and whatever they're doing with their buildings and investments and their whole
Yeah.
lifestyle. Even though
Yeah.
that's where more Africans are, and obviously more pure Africans. If that even makes any sense or if that's even an issue. But I'm just saying, like in general, they probably have a better reference of their history. But when you go to anybody with African American lineage of any sense, when they look on that lineage part, they don't have much reference of greatness. Within when you start going back in history, so they're trying to gravitate or grab onto anything that they figure out might be African American.
No, I fully agree. And two, kind of I think a lot of the issue came in with Nick was a lot of current stuff. I mean, because and I was having a conversation with somebody on another platform because remember a lot of what he said was what's current, what you and I kind of that the Jews run the world, like you know what I mean. That idea, you know what I mean. I think wants to kind of hide itself behind the shadows, but I feel that if we look at um, what runs the world. If we look at the influence, what runs influence in the world? Hollywood, media runs. Was who's that? Confucius, was it Confucius who said, "He who controls images controls minds." So anyone with who controls images that controls mind. We know that by just, being people, being able to, talk to people, being, raising children, the images controls the mind. So if we look at Hollywood, everything is influenced by Hollywood. If we look at who runs Hollywood, if me and you be honest with our experiences, whether, we rub shoulders with everybody. And if we just step back and say, who had the money? If we step back and say, the people that we seen that look like us in power, they also had somebody that they kind of had to go to. We know with my brother Long, we said his name. We said, we said, yo, that's probably because of who he's with. That just shows you that he don't have hate for those type of people. So, and I think him exposing, I told somebody, like, I think we missed what Nick said. And even going back to the Boyce Watkins, I think you missed what we have here is a young man who grew up since 16 in Hollywood. He's pushing 40 now. You feel me? So this is somebody who had a front seat, who partaken in the Hollywood industry since a teenager. And he's literally telling you, from my experience, the people who put the millions in my account were these people. The people who I had to get these parts in were these people. I've rubbed shoulders with billionaires. I've created my own company, but the people who, and I think he's pointing to a power structure. His main idea is to gain power. What do we have to do to get power? Okay, was it wrong for Dr. King them to integrate? That's a whole nother conversation. Should we have continued our black schools and black banks? Would we have been in a whole nother boat now if we didn't integrate? Now, we didn't say not love people, but should we have built our own? And so I think that the subject is really power and who's in power and why does it seem we can never have power. So I think we missed that we have somebody who spent over 20 some years in the game of entertainment, and had given us a unique insight, and they're a millionaire. They've collected these checks. They walked in and they're saying, hey man, the people who are in control for my opticals are these people, and these people spanked them and said, hey, we don't run the world. Don't say that. But you have somebody who's dealt with them on an elite level, who's dealt with finances on an elite level, and they're saying, hey man, this is the tunnel that all this has been, the influence. If they wanted to promote these agendas, these laws that's going on, these are the people who's doing it. And that narrative is not even that the black people want to be Jews. I think it's bigger than all the black people are saying that Jews. Is that, listen, there's people in power who's running this world, and this world is going into a bad direction because the people who are in power does not have the best intentions. And I've seen them. And I think that was really the bigger picture of really pointing out that culture. When we're not saying all Jews, that's like saying all black people are murderers. That's not. But if you look at the top, if you look at the control, who runs the media, he's saying, yo, look over here in this direction. And I think that's valuable insight, and that should have been taken as a golden nugget other than buck breaking or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I get your points. I mean, I think they're all valid. I don't know, man. I think Gabe is like, I think that's a tricky line to walk because, again, it touches a point to where it's like, when you say something, do you offend others, by your own possible questions? And I think that is the problem or the thing about when you're a curious person. Sometimes if you're curious and you might ask some questions, it may offend somebody. I asked one of my relatives a question when I was, a younger adult as a kid, and it offended them, right? Because they got kind of pissed at me, like, I can't believe you asked me. But I noticed something, and so I just asked a question. But it was offensive to them because to them, what the hell are you saying? And it's just like, at the same point, I can get these points, and I think they make sense, and they might have some validity to it, or they might sound valid in certain ways. But I think like the point is like, I think what the people that are complaining right now who are upset, feel hurt are those people, and they're basically saying, hey, look, this is the type of rhetoric that caused us to be targeted. And so therefore it's like, yeah, Nick Cannon brought up something that may have had some type of substance of some sense, or it may sound like there's something there, but it's just like, at what point at what point does bringing up something like that hurt people? Because
And
I think
that's
that's the
when
trickiest point of when you try to bring up, I think I might have noticed something. There might be a pattern here, and I believe this, and I saw this, and this is what my experience says, or I said it. But it's all about how you articulate things, and there's certain things that if you articulate them, they carry pain with them, and it's scary.
no,
It's a
absolutely,
touchy point. It's just like, it's like when somebody says
absolutely.
something about an African American. Why can't they just get jobs?
Yeah.
Why are they this and that? Why are there so much
Those are
crime? If you look at the
I think
numbers, the
those are
crime,
great questions. I think, and this what I would say to that, because that's a valid point. But I would say those are I feel in my experience, and anybody who gets offended behind a question, for me, has something to hide. If I'm in a relationship with a girl and I just got a feeling, and from my experience, you probably cheating, and I ask you and you get offended, you probably cheating. Like, you feel me? And that's what I feel that there's a time and place for the babies to go to bed and be babies and be sleep. And there's a time for the men, whether it's townsmen, to come together and be able to have a healthy dialogue with the gloves off and not be offended. Because if we walk around tiptoeing and worrying about offending people,
But
we lose.
we live in a world where it's like, saying words are dangerous, and I think like now,
And it's not always been that way.
no, it hasn't.
We
But
we
people,
used to respect the men
but
who would be man enough to say what they feel. We used to respect those men.
but the
We used
reason
to
why we
give
don't now
them.
though is because what people are doing is they're looking at history. They're looking at
Mhm.
history and they're saying, what kind of, if you have certain conversations like that, what kind of problems does that bring? Did that bring havoc and hell and pain on my people? And so if you bring up those certain things, it's just like, I see you might want trying to make it a point. I see you're trying to say something here. There might be something there. There might not be anything there. But
Yeah.
bringing up that point cause, might, from another person's perspective, might cause a lot of bad shit to happen because there's already people that are hating. And that
And that's
and
the same
that
thing
and
people
and
say
based on
to
that hate and those type of even questions caused murder. So this is why some people just like, yo, bro, you can't bring up shit like that, bro. Like, come on, dude. Like, you can't say it on the world, not and you have a platform because we you can believe or ask questions. You might see patterns, whatever you want to see. That's fine. But now you bringing up some shit that somebody did years ago, and that we don't want that type of rhetoric because that can stream that could steam up hate. So when
and I,
somebody
and I feel
powerful
that's
like
the
that can
same.
steam up hate.
I feel that's the same idea of people telling, when they talk about slavery, they saying just get over it. It's the past, man. Like,
Hmm.
just get over it. There's so much pain. People were hung, people were dying. If you bring that up, and if you say nigga or with the hard ER, somebody might punch you in the face, or and there's these things that people don't want to talk about because of the history of it and the pain behind it. But those are the very topics that are being buried and that we can learn. No, no, no. Let's have this dialogue. Number one, we'll see how people, we'll have a case study at least. You know what I mean? Let's bring this to the table and let's talk about these things and let's figure it out. I mean, the older the better, because now we have what is it? Hindsight is 2020. Now we have a perspective to look at and analyze these things. I think when we get to, oh, don't talk about that, that's too touchy. I think that comes from a state of fear. You know what I mean? As long as we're not being violent, we're not gonna, you know what I mean? We need to talk about that. There's a time where even when somebody's passed, there's a time to talk about the good times of somebody who ain't here. There's a time to have those good memories, even though it might bring some pain, it might bring you to tears. You know what I mean? But there's some things I feel that has to be talked about. And if when we're talking about identity, if we're talking about birthrights, or if we're talking about belonging, if we're talking about fairness, equality, I think there should be no stone unturned. I think in science, if science in itself can take a hypothesis and explore every avenue to get to the truth of the thing, I think we definitely need to take that approach when it comes to our identity and our being. If we're doing that about you know jelly beans and science projects, whatever it might be. You feel me? Like, I
Yeah,
think
Gabe. I get everything you're saying. I think it all has some substance to it. But like I said again, I think like overall, people are going to take things the wrong way when certain questions are drawn, and I think like we live in a time where it's like people are afraid. People are afraid that if you bring up certain things, it could cause other bad things that happened in the past to happen. So therefore, if you have this wild idea, whether it's might be true or it might not, or it might be totally fiction, whatever it may be, you have this idea and they feel that it's rooted with a lot of power because there's already some people who have hate in their hearts and have proven in the past to passionately execute these type of hateful things towards a group. It's scary when somebody even has those conversations. So I could get why somebody would be like, "Hey, bro, don't even fucking have that conversation with us. Don't even say some shit like that."
How do we ever come to a conclusion if we keep that? We will never come to a solution.
I don't know. I think that's a great question.
It'll always be a monster in the closet, even in therapy.
It's tricky because it's tricky because all right, for example, right now you see what Trump said. He said some things about China and things like that, and just those little freaking things that he said, and it offended people because how he said some shit, whether how he delivered it or whatever. I think even if he delivered it in another way, it still might have been a problem. So just by him doing that, look what it ricocheted. He might have brought up some valid points about some things. He might have brought up some valid points about immigration. He might have brought up some valid points about China in certain ways, but some shit that he said caused the radicals to get crazy.
So
now they're shooting up Asians because some crazy shit.
With Jesus, look, with Jesus said something that was true. They got him killed. They went crazy. They hung him on the cross. It got him killed. It got his life. But if he didn't stand up to say it, it wouldn't have been an opportunity for salvation. So there has to be somebody willing to have that hard conversation, willing to run and stand in the face of authority and say, hey, this might not be right. Or we might have a generation after generation of perpetuating the same cycle if we're not willing to say, okay, let's have these hard conversations. Let's look at these things. So if Jesus wasn't willing to say, hey, man, I'm telling it, well, you know what? I ain't going to tell all the truth. You know what I mean? If he wasn't willing to say, hey, I'm willing to lay my life down on the line for this, and even if they don't get it in this generation, there's going to be a dude named Gabriel, and he going to get on the, you know what I mean? And he going to be talking about it like, if he wasn't willing to make that sacrifice, stand in the face of everything unpopular, everything that people didn't want to hear, and risk his life, we wouldn't have, like I said, the salvation opportunity we have now.
And I agree with you totally, man. I totally agree with you. But like I said, still, I think there's just some people that are going to feel offended by those things. And sometimes when certain people feel offended by those, I guess you have to watch how you articulate certain things. And I get why some things might need to be discussed, but people might just take that shit the wrong way because it's not really about the people who take things in the right way. It's the people that take shit in the wrong way that can make it bad. For one person who tried to just ask a question or who just came up with some idea or who saw a pattern and he just wanted to mention it, he just says some shit that fuels the hate people, and then you have people getting hurt. And I think that is where the other communities might feel offended. Even if they're, whether or not they're part of the community or that community's this color and they're all different colors and they're still the same people or whatever it may be, is not relevant. It's like, who do people identify as such now? And then what was happening in Europe at that time with certain people who were hateful and they used them as the crutch.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, whatever it may be, if it's fact or false or truth, whatever it may be, certain people might get scared because it might be like, it's like, oh shit, I remember that. As soon as people start talking that shit.
Would you rather have the truth? If you was with the female, right, and she was feeling feelings like, I don't want to be, wouldn't you rather her tell you the truth than go on pretending? Like, though the truth might hurt, the truth might break your heart.
Right.
Like, it's probably better to have the truth of the situation.
But I think like certain people, they don't see themselves as in a relationship. They see that it's like, this is going to attack my family. Certain rhetoric or conversations like that attack my family and their potential because there's already people that are hateful who are just waiting by the side saying, all right, yeah, see, I told you. Look at this. Oh, yeah, they're right. Let's join in. Let's go. Yeah, they're doing this. They're taking over the world. Look at them. See, they're doing it. And that causes hate. So I don't think that somebody was trying to do that. And I understand you're saying that's not the motive. But the problem is, it's not about what's the motive. It's the dummies who get radical. So that is what
Yeah,
they're afraid of, is the
absolutely.
radicals. It's the conversation isn't really the fear. I think it's just the radicals and how they interpret that shit. The crazy people interpret
I don't
shit.
think you
And
can control everybody because I think I just fear that it'll get into the what is it the complimentary trophy
yeah,
where
all you need is one fucking person with power to say one thing, and it fuels the puppets. Trump said
yeah
something
you
about
get the
China.
Capitol riot.
Trump
You get
Trump
the Capitol
Trump
riot.
just said something about China, and what the hell happened? Now you got these random people killing, and shooting Chinese people up. That shit wasn't
Mhm.
really happening before like that on that level. But one
Yeah.
person says, and so that's where it comes from. One person of power and who has a platform says one little thing that they might have got curious of, or said something that might have offended some people, and it might have brought a lot of pain. That the weight of that could be big to certain people based on their history.
The way that could be Hitler. I feel you, but I think the ideology behind it will lead us to, like I was saying, the participation trophy, to where we don't get the truth of who the winner is. We just give everybody the same participation trophy
And
because
and I agree with that, but I think, are people fucking ready for that? People are still so immature to sit down and have a conversation. And we're cancel culture right now.
that's the immaturity. And the only reason why
So
we're
even to have
cancel
those
culture,
conversations right now,
I'm
people
glad.
aren't
Look,
ready. Are people
T,
ready?
I'm glad you said that because I think cancel culture is a fruit of not dealing with the truth. So people I think cancel culture is a result of what you said. So because we're not going to deal with that, don't talk about that, just cancel him, get rid of him, go put him over there, and let's not deal with it. So I think that's where we get things like cancel culture from, because people don't want to deal with the issues. Somebody said something that was offensive, so instead of trying to understand where they come from, because somebody could say something that's true, that's a lie for you, but that's true for them because of their experience, because their walk of life, because their unique, point of view. You know what I mean? So I think that if we're not willing to, I think it makes it okay not to understand each other. You know what I mean? If we could go on the topic of Dwayne Wade's son or anything, like if I give my perspective of that, somebody could say that's completely offensive. Like that's a child. And not understand where I'm coming from. And I could give you an idea of how I, think this or do that. But if you let the offense be the fact that someone be offended, you'll never get nowhere, because everybody will be walking on eggshells, and it'll be a world trying not to offend each other instead of finding truth. So if the motive is to not offend, we'll have a world full of liars, because everybody gonna get offended by something. Your wife asks you, do I look good in this dress, baby? And you ain't trying to offend her. You feel me? You might not get to the truth. Instead of being workout buddies, you might just go further into lying to each other. You know what I mean? So I don't think, I think being offended is okay, because I think sometimes, even in my own work, that's time I was completely offended and had to gain more understanding. You know what I mean? That was things like, working for my brother, and because we was brothers, I was offended how you did me. But boy, you don't understand business. So once you understand business, your offense will change, because you understand more. And I think, if we approach things that way, we give ourselves an excuse not to understand each other.
Awesome. That's great. Great conversation with you, Gabe, man. It's always good to conversate with you guys and always just see perspectives and see how people see shit, and always learn. Conversations are amazing, because whether you agree or you don't agree, or you grow on things, you hear different perspectives. That's what conversations are about. And I like them. But, the world sometimes does, sometimes doesn't. And everything you said, it has substance and it makes sense. And you're just basically saying that people should be more open to hear different opinions. And, somebody gave their opinion, and maybe, there might be substance to that, but everybody or maybe there might not be substance to it, but everybody should be able to come to the table and at least have a conversation. And it should be open to have a conversation and not be afraid to say certain things. And I agree with that. But I think there's also the other side of the coin, where it's just like, people are stupid, and
No, absolutely.
they take shit the other way. You know how you say something to somebody, and then you tell it to somebody, and they interpret that shit something else, and
It's religion,
you're like,
bro.
yo, what the hell? I just told you. I said don't fuck with that person. All right, now the next thing you know, one of your buddies is beating them up or fighting. I'm like, no, man, I just said I don't mess with that person. We're cool, man, but like, what are you doing?
It's like having one Bible but 50,000 different religions.
Yeah.
Like,
So
how did y'all get that? Like,
exactly. It's just it's information and how people distribute it and how people interpret it. And I think when you say certain things, accountability has to be happening when you have a platform, because people sometimes just hear what you say and take the wrong freaking idea. And I think Nick understood that, and he realized that, and he was man enough to say, okay, wait a minute, let me back the hell up, because this shit just got, it went somewhere else that I wasn't even trying to go. I was just trying to like have a conversation, and I wasn't trying to do all this
that,
shit.
But Trump and Hitler didn't.
Right. But they didn't have to be as well. They didn't have to acknowledge that. They don't give a shit. They can say what they want. But he at least, he at least understood where he said something, and he said, you know what, I think maybe I shouldn't have said that, and that was probably wrong. And I was just heated, and I got in the conversation. It is what it is. But I was trying to do something else and ended up turning another way, but people took it this way. So it's just like, fuck. But it's not hard to do what he did anyways. Either way, what he did, it was not easy to do it. To apologize, it's not easy, because people have the ego, and everybody wants to be right, you know? You know, and regardless of that, it is what it is. And Boyce saying what he had to say, attacking him, jumping on top of Nick while Nick was down.
We want Boyce to see this. At Boyce in this. We want Boyce to see this.
All right. Well, at Boyce. But Gabe, it's been great fucking catching up with you. It's awesome. It's amazing to see that you're doing good. Happy for your family. You know, we want to wish peace and love to everybody out there, every culture, every person out there. We love you all. There's no discrimination on this. Gabe was just talking about conversations that people should have based off of history. It's a fun conversation, not meant to hurt anybody. So please don't take what anybody said in this conversation as
cancel me next.
Exactly. Yeah, right. You're canceled, man. You're canceled. But it's all love. It's all love.
Hey, brother, I love you, man. I love everything you're doing. You always been an inspiration to me, bro. I was looking up to you because you was always a step above, past everybody. You in technology, we still do, you know what I mean? Still doing nanos and stuff. So, man, I appreciate just who God created you to be, the way your mind works, bro, because it's unique, especially in the space you in, especially in the space you came from, the Hollywood. Like, I don't know if you know, because you can't watch yourself, but everybody pay attention when you speaking, when you move, bro, because we know some genius coming. So, man, I appreciate you for who you are, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man. Likewise. And I'll say the same thing for you, man. Keep on giving that compassion and doing God's work, and he's going to continue to bless you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. I love you, brother.
Love you too, man. You can call me anytime. Thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate you doing this.
Yes, sir. I love the show. Keep pushing, baby.
All right.
Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Kids in the Room podcast. Kids in the Room podcast.
That's right. That's right.
Brought to you by Move Faces TV. Let's go.